It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's here. Richard Campbell is still in New Zealand, but he's heading out right after the show to come back home. We will talk about big changes in Windows 11, a new start menu, believe it or not. We'll also have a little to say about Apple's spanking earlier this week from the judge in the Apple Epic case. And yes, maybe our long nightmare is over. Activision, Blizzard, Microsoft, I think the FTC has received the final nail in the coffin. All that and more coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 931, recorded Wednesday, May 7th, 2025. The Eaglet has landed. It's time.
Oh my God.
He's doing a Dudley Do-Right laugh now.
I gotta stop taking so many drugs. Go on.
You guys are all heavily medicated.
Oh my God.
You know how I avoid allergies? I go to the other hemisphere. It works like a hot day
Now's
out.
the time to say goodbye.
They're behind the
to our
curtain,
family.
but they can't wait to get out on the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, winners and dozers, the time has come once again to gather together and celebrate all that Microsoft has brought us. Paul Thurrott can't stop laughing. He's back in Makunji. That's why he's so happy.
There you go.
A little punchy.
A little punchy. Did you just fly in?
I don't want to talk about it, Leo.
Boy, are your arms tired.
Yeah.
And
you went
there he
through
is
Newark.
in
You went
New
through
Zealand,
Newark,
but he's
didn't you?
about to head for home. Richard Campbell. Hi, Richard.
Hey, man. And so 3 weeks on the road, right? We did a Sydney and a Melbourne and now a Tauranga. And
Did you
tomorrow.
take your
Please,
fam
I
with
was
you?
on the road for 4 months. Give me a break, man.
You weren't on the road. You were home for 4 months.
Is Tauranga near Terabithia? That's my question.
No, not even close. But this place is very much like home for me too, right?
Yeah.
I literally was
You have
born
family there,
down
right?
the road from here. Yeah, I'm on
You
the
were
family.
born
farm, right?
here.
I was born here, literally down this street, like this.
He's a
this
Kiwi.
little-
He's a
To pull it
native
another
Kiwi.
Star Wars quote, that's
True.
convenient. You're going to die there too. You know, it's like we've just been doing Star Wars quotes.
Just
Sorry,
one
don't mind
quote
it.
after another.
Don't mind it.
Never mind.
It's May the 7th, and you know what that means.
Yeah, we missed May
Absolutely
the 4th
nothing.
again.
It means we're old and we don't know what day it is.
What day is it? It's a
That's close
Wednesday.
enough.
Nice.
Time to talk Microsoft. Let's, I read your headline. I thought, Microsoft's changing the name of Windows 11. No, that's not the
I
big
wish.
change.
Yeah.
What are you going to change it to? Windows 12?
11.1. That seems to have worked out well for them in the past.
So, but there are big changes a coming. Yes?
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking about changes all year, really, and there's been this speculation we're going to go into 25H2 anytime now. Maybe Windows 12. Microsoft just announced a bunch of new features coming to Windows 11, but they declined to say, this will be the next version. This will be in all versions. I mean, I guess they're all everything they do is technically going everywhere. So maybe, I don't know, maybe this is something only I worry about, but the big one is the rumored new start menu, right? And we had seen that leaked a couple weeks ago, I guess we'll call it. I actually had it running on my Surface laptop before I blew it away.
What is new about the start menu?
What is it new, Leo?
Is it in the middle still?
Yeah, it's in the middle still. That hasn't
Okay.
changed. It's bigger, taller. It's it has that phone thing
Faster.
on the side, the phone companion. But the big thing is, right now there's two sections in the start menu, right? Pinned and recommended. And you can't do much to configure it. You can give more space to pinned, more space to recommended, keep it equal. If you delete everything from pinned, you just have a big blank space up at the top.
Oh.
But they're changing the bottom so that instead of recommended, it's going to be different views of all apps. So there's like groups by default, but you can also just do the all apps list right there. So they're making it all about apps, basically. I mean, you can still have some of the recommended stuff in there, but
Weird. The
this is-
start menu is all about apps. I always thought it was about ads.
yes, they're going retro. The default view down there looks a lot like the app library in iOS, if you're familiar with that, the big kind of rounded rectangle, folders or whatever. But I like the all apps view. So, and you can do it by category or however, or in groups or whatever. But
So when do we get this lovely new?
yeah, you would think. Well, so Microsoft announced this, so there's no way to know. My guess is, I'm not joking. My guess is this week we'll see it in the Insider program, and then where it appears will help us figure out where it's going to end up. Probably, my guess is actually it will be one of the things they roll out with the next version, but it could be before that. I mean, they just announced it, so it seems like they're ready to go. There's other stuff too. So if you have a Copilot Plus PC, there's a bunch of new stuff coming. Nothing major, but updates to existing features for the most part. Notepad, of course, they can't stop updating that.
It's funny. You neglect it for years, and then suddenly you just can't keep your hands off of it.
Wham, 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 wham. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody figured out how to recompile it again, and now they're just having fun.
Yeah.
Hey,
Right.
look what we
They
found,
found the source code. They're like, finally.
Wow, look at that.
Look at it go.
Did Bill write this?
There's new features coming in Paint and Photos, in Snipping Tool, all the usual suspects. A lot of this stuff is Copilot Plus PC Copilot Plus PC specific. But yeah, there's not a lot of, well, actually, most of the Copilot Plus PC stuff, at least, is going to be rolling out first to insiders over the next month. So I think this is 25H2. They're not saying.
Is this change for change's sake, or is it like an improvement? I mean, is it like something?
The start menu is an actual improvement, honestly, because that's been something that to me has been borderline useless since they did Windows 11, and I actually do like those changes. They do seem to just touch stuff now a lot, just change for change's sake, I guess.
There you go.
Move my
Microsoft
cheese type.
touching stuff a lot.
Yeah, show
Well,
us
everybody
on the
does
doll
that.
where
Apple's
Microsoft
going to
touched the
redesign
feature.
iOS. Google does that.
Yeah.
We have this new material design they call it. They leaked. Some of that's just so that you feel like you have to get the new thing, or some of it's just to keep you excited. I don't know. It feels like card companies do this too.
The basic Windows UI is not changing from, what we got in 11 to begin with. I mean, unless there's something coming we don't know about, but yeah, I mean, I the last 2 years have been defined by this kind of chaotic, steady addition of new features.
I guess it's important. One of the reasons they say Tesla sales have fallen off is that they haven't done a redesign in years. That's
it's because they didn't add CarPlay to the screen.
That stops me. I'll be honest. That's it for me.
That's almost like the number one. CarPlay, Android Auto, like.
Yeah, I gotta have.
And then
those.
it's like, okay, so we have that. Is it going to be gas or is it going to be electric or hybrid? Yeah. After that, you're like,
that's the only check mark that matters. Yeah.
Couldn't care less after that.
I am angry with this rental car because the Android CarPlay or Auto won't work. It just keeps failing over and over again. It's like this car is defective.
It's nice because you got the maps and they're up to date. They're up to date. You've got your music. You've got all your stuff.
Everything's right there. It's No, it's really nice. I love it.
I really like rental cars.
I don't have a car with it, so every time I get a rental car, I'm like, oh. My car's so old it has like an orange kind of amber screen and Bluetooth that works sometimes, and it's just.
I commend you because you're doing your part for sustainability.
Oh no, I'm actively campaigning to get rid of this. You can commend my wife; she's the one who puts the brakes on this. But like I would have replaced this thing 5 years ago.
We have perfectly good car at home. We don't need car.
I wouldn't say perfectly good. We have a vehicle that has 4 tires. It did start right up when we got home. That was pretty cool.
That's nice.
That's pretty amazing, actually. How it's been sitting there for months.
I know, neglected.
You didn't drain the sump and put it up on blocks or anything. You just left it there.
Yep.
Let it sit there.
The piece of garbage it is.
Did you have somebody come over and move it around every once in a while?
No, but
nothing. You didn't have a bald spot on your tires.
Right. I mean, this was offered to. I mean, it's possible. Like one of our nieces or nephews.
Somebody might have taken it without your.
No, I mean, we offered this. Like we kind of would prefer someone to move it.
Sure, you want somebody to drive it.
Yeah. But I don't think anyone did.
Well, good on it. It's a trooper. It's reliable.
Yeah, it refuses to die like most annoying things. And
how old is it?
I think it's a 2013.
Wow, a 12-year-old car.
Yeah, it's not.
It's really interesting how much cars have changed in that interim.
I know. We missed the whole hybrid thing. That came and went. I guess that was a big deal for a little while. Prius and all that stuff. And then, Yeah, now we're doing electric cars. Apparently, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. The next step for my vehicle will be a horse pulling it on a rope or something. I don't know.
Well, you are in. You know,
I know. It would look normal here. Yeah, exactly.
You
I'll
could
just wear a big black hat.
wear a nice little hat. Yeah.
Now, every time I'm down here, I see a Holden Ute, and I want one so badly. Like, you've got to Google this. Like,
A Holden Ute.
yeah, HOLDEN UTE, Holden Ute.
What is it?
It's
A cheap
an El-
car, probably.
No, it's like an El Camino, but Australia size.
Oh.
That's
It's
funny.
a two-seater with a bed. Yeah, that's it. That's a whole.
That is the
It
ugliest
is like
thing
an
I've
El
ever seen.
Camino.
That's
So it's
like
got
a
a-
Buick El Camino. What is
That's it. No, it's a Pontiac El Camino. To be clear,
That's horrible.
That is hysterical looking.
I love them. I just love them. That's so.
All it
great.
needs is a
It's
snorkel.
The
There
big
is,
thing for
there
me-
is. This is in Hamilton. This picture.
Yeah.
So
Have you, do they have the Chinese electric cars down there, like BDY and so forth?
BYD.
Those are
no,
ama-
no.
those
They're
are
all
amazing.
over. They're
Oh,
all
this
over
is the old
Australia, but they're
Holden-
not here in New Zealand.
FJ Utility. That's a pickup truck
Not,
too.
not the same thing, you know.
Oh, that's disgusting.
There is very ugly.
That's a Taurus with a pickup on the back.
Try a Holden Ute Maloo.
That's
Look
definitely
at that
a
color.
Pontiac.
Look
yeah,
at that.
that's a Pontiac
Yeah.
front end there.
Mustard color.
So this is a GM vehicle?
It's Holden was the Australian line, but that little truck bed in the back, like, and it's all and they're rear wheel drive, and you get them in a V8.
It's so hideous.
I need one of these. They just make
This
me
is,
happy.
Folks, for you
this is
listening
like-
at home, just imagine a Pontiac with a pickup truck glued on the
When
back.
Steve
On the back.
Jobs introduced the first iMac, he showed like a piece of junk beige
with a dial, right? An
compact,
iPod with a
remember?
dial.
Remember the compact computer he compared it to? That's what this
Oh,
is.
yeah.
This is the
Yeah.
a compact computer as a car.
Every time I see one, I'm like, I gotta have one of those.
Are there a lot of them?
It's
No,
ugly and
They're
really
very rare. They
functional.
haven't been made in
okay.
15 years, something like that.
It is. It's the El Camino of New Zealand.
of New Zealand, and Australia. It's really Holden was an Australian car company. It's defunct now.
Oh, now it's gone. Wow.
That's it.
It definitely looks like a Pontiac front end.
Well, and it's Pontiac parts, 100%. Like the
Hey,
motors. Are,
while I'm looking at the Utes, Windows very kindly has popped up a little thing that says, "Hey, we noticed you have some unused printers. Would you like us to?" Oh, guess I
Yeah.
can't. It offered to remove them, and then now it hit it.
Well, click the clock. You can probably get it.
Click
back
the
and then-
clock. Is that the secret?
Well, it's not a secret. It's just
We noticed you have some unused printers. Would you like to remove them? No,
nice.
no, that's actually
you're
the
like,
printer
no,
I'm
actually,
using.
no. But
But
we
those are
notice
my printers.
we notice you have printers, and it's 2025. Would you like?
What do you have printers for?
Yeah.
What do you
are you
have
doing?
that? Well, they saw me looking at the Holden Utes, and they figured, this guy's a loser.
You should get rid of the printers. Yeah,
Get rid of the printers.
but it merely says you haven't printed in so long. We think
Yeah.
you don't have these printers anymore.
Yeah, but I do. That's my printer. But you're right. I only print tickets. I don't usually print much else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Holden Ute,
I can't. Yeah, I don't print.
also called the Chevrolet Lumina or the Pontiac G8 Sport Track.
So are these are custom things? Like they cut the
No.
back off and
no,
that's
no,
just-
they
that's
were
just how
made
they
in a
look.
factory, man. They were
someone made
in a
this on
factory.
purpose. You're saying?
Yeah.
So
and people bought them in droves. They are beloved.
blind people or
Look, here's an article from GM Authority: How to import a real Holden Ute into the United States.
number one, throw away all common sense. Number two,
You really? Oh, look, here's somebody doing burnouts with blue smoke in a Holden Ute. I don't know how they did that. Wow.
There you go.
Oh,
You have been enlightened.
it's illegal in the United States. That's the problem.
I mean, it's
they're
morally
illegal
offensive
here.
everywhere, but
Well, they're
Might be the
right-hand
blue
drive,
smoke.
so you have to get them converted.
Oh, they're right-handed drive. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, so it's illegal to have a right-hand drive car in the U.S.?
Apparently, unless it's in the classic category.
Right, you can do anything in the classic. I see people driving the craziest cars around here because this is Car Town, USA.
Sure.
it's probably related to safety regulations or whatever they.
Yeah, I'm
ostensibly-
sorry. I may have completely derailed the conversation with this ridiculous vehicle. But
Dr. Dew says the blue smoke means there's a new car pope. So that's good to know.
Nice.
I'm sorry for the sacrilegiousness, but I'm just following in the footsteps of our
why?
president.
Which just it was.
It's kind of hard these days to actually be more outrageous. By the way, you didn't say a word about my shirt.
Yeah, we did. As soon as you signed in, we both made fun of it.
Oh, I didn't have my headphones.
Yeah, didn't have your earpieces in yet. I'm like,
We
well,
are the
That's a
children
new
of the corn.
Here's a shirt.
collection from Abrazos Design.
that's an epic color. That's really
It's corn.
It's good.
There you go.
It's corn color, or as they say in San Miguel, elote.
That's right. It's I was waiting for an Uber with a friend of mine about a year ago, and he looked at me and he goes, "Maize, that means corn." And I was like, "Thank you. Why are you telling me this?" Which is apropos of nothing,
Paul.
Yeah. Okay. I saw those butter ads in the 1970s as well.
That means. Oh yeah, that's Indian for corn. Yeah, I remember that. Wow. All right, we have really gone far afield. Let's talk about the new Surface stuff.
Yeah. So
they had that big announcement this week.
Yeah, so at the same time as the Microsoft announced these new features coming to Windows, Microsoft announced two, I'm going to call them additive Surface devices, Surface PCs. So new Surface Pro and Surface Laptop models that are different from the existing versions, but also not replacing them, right? So they're both smaller. They're both less expensive. They both have lower end Snapdragon, plus chips or whatever.
Right.
Honestly,
this could be about your car. Can we talk about your laptop?
what's going on?
It's got an orange screen in it.
So they're trying to push it as an upgrade.
Well, they don't say it this way. It's sort of like when Apple introduced the 16E and they didn't say, well, this is going to replace the SE.
Yeah.
These replace like the Go products they used to have. So there was a Surface Go, which was a little tablet, and then a Surface Laptop Go, which is a little laptop. So these are they're full size, but smaller, right? So 13-inch on the laptop as opposed to 13.8 and 15 on the existing versions, and then 12 inches on the Pro, and fanless, by the way, which is nice. And the first Snapdragon, as opposed to 13 inches. So they kind of have this, broader family of both these products. And actually, if you look at the consumer lineups now, this is it. They have Surface Laptop, they have Surface Pro.
Oh, that's interesting.
All right.
Yeah.
And these are Copilot. These are ARM-based Copilot PCs.
Copilot plus PCs now. But this is the post-Panos hardware now.
Yeah, this is... Mike, look, I'm sure Satya Nadella, whomever, someone, Amy Hood, whatever it was, came to them and like they went to a lot of Microsoft and said, you're going to have to cut back. We're doing this other thing now. It's a little bigger. And Windows and Surface, both, especially Surface, because Surface is just, not a profit center, right? I'm sure there were a lot of aspirations, but it's not making any money. So I think these make sense, honestly. I think these are cool computers. I think these will be really nice for students, obviously, but also for people who travel a lot and need the battery life above all else. I don't know what the performance is like I've never used one of the Plus chips.
I was also thinking this is the last hurrah of the first generation Snapdragon Ultras.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just met with Qualcomm, interestingly, and they were kind of talking about their schedule is basically September. They didn't say this outright, but they're having an event in September. So obviously September, and this confirms, rumors we've heard. So let's say September for V2, focus on the GPU. The focus on the first version was performance per watt, efficiency, and then with Microsoft and the Prism emulator, compatibility, right? Even with those apps that are not native, although that situation has improved dramatically. So, they started out with the kind of the core part of the market, which is that kind of premium laptop, went down market to less expensive computers. So 600 and under now. And the next phase that is rolling out right as we speak is targeting the enterprise, right? They're going after business customers as well.
So these are definitely, if I look at the ad, aimed at the consumer market, the young consumer market.
Yeah, but these same products are going into the business line as well. So starting in, I think that happens June or July, but yeah, today they're launching for consumers, but these exact products are going to launch for business as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Got rid of that fancy charging doohickey, and it's just a USB port now.
Yeah, and actually on the Surface Pro, they got rid of the brick entirely. Like you're on your own, because the Go products had shipped with a 45 watt,
a little
it was USB. I don't remember if it was USB or Surface Connect, but a power adapter. You can use either, obviously, with whatever wire. But these don't even have the Surface Connect. Yeah,
it's dead then.
Well, it's hard to say. So they might still offer it. It's one of those things because this business makes that a little tricky. So we'll see what they do next. I mean, the previous Surfaces they've announced for business and the ones they did last year for Copilot Plus PC were all Surface Connect. So they didn't say that. We'll see what the next gen looks like, but I don't know that this is unique. Like I'm not 100% sure that some of the Go products didn't ship without Surface Connect at one point or another as well. But obviously most, if not all, Surface products have had Surface Connect. But anyway, USB-C is the right way to go. This is one of those areas where to make this thing hit a certain price point, and these are pretty cheap too, like $799, $899. You have to make compromises, right? So the screens are slightly lower res. Obviously, there's no Surface Connect. The USB is not Thunderbolt 4. It's USB 3 point something. I don't know. I don't know this for a fact, but I bet it's 10 gigabits per second, not 20, or it's certainly not 40. It's UFS storage instead of SSD, but
that's good, right? Or no?
I think it's good for efficiency. It's good for battery life. Like it's probably fine. Like it's not going to be the highest performance thing.
Yeah, it's another good cost cutting measure. It's how you keep the thing under $1,000.
Yeah. Richard, I will say, because I know you've been concerned about this, I asked about your desktop computer, build it yourself kind of thing, and they don't see going into this market.
Huh.
Yeah. I don't think there's going to be a Snapdragon ATX board. Like you should not.
Yeah, there are going to be desktops. Right now, all we have is that Lenovo
mini
thing. Yeah. But yeah, they're like, it wasn't, I mean, these aren't the decision makers I talked to, but the feeling was like, look, we're going after the volume part of the market. You have to start where most of the people are. I know, I've certainly heard this call, but it's always from people like us, like technical people who kind of want to do our own thing and whatever. And they're like, yeah.
The testing cost is not small. Like this is not a little thing to get into.
Yeah. And this isn't so much Qualcomm, but from Microsoft's perspective, these things are secure core PCs. They have Pluton processors. They are Windows Hello ESS. You can't really do that in a build. You can't literally do that in a build your own system. There's no way to certify that, right? So
no, you have to have a bunch of hardware requirements that the typical hand builder's not going to follow anyway.
Yep. So I maybe that should have been the clue that this probably wasn't going to happen, but it's probably not going to happen. I think. Yeah.
Well. Geez, how important is this business to Microsoft?
I think this is the future of Windows. I think Microsoft is sending a message here in some ways. I mean, obviously, there will still be these Intel AMD Surface devices occasionally, like we saw that with the business line where they did that rev last year, or was it earlier this year, whatever it was. But a lot of that I feel like is partner service. I mean, one of the things they were kind of hammering about these devices was like this notion that they would say, they always say things like, in the past, we used to put these AI workloads on GPUs, but it's actually way more efficient to do that on an NPU. And it's like, okay, but that past was like 10 seconds ago.
Welcome to the future.
Yeah. So Surface has always had this kind of weird stigma. They want to be leaders. They want to be perceived as leaders. They want to innovate on form factor.
Yeah, I always thought they were reference machines,
That's what I always thought, but
well, that's actually been part of it, right? They want to inspire PC makers to adopt these designs, and they've only really been successful with that one Pro tablet design, right? That's the one a lot of PC makers did at least at one point make versions of.
The convertible,
Yeah, but I think now they have that, and now they have a laptop. You got to have a laptop, so that makes sense. But I think like the way they can kind of show leadership, so to speak, because they're never going to like win the market. They're not, which might be best for their relationships with these other companies.
OEMs are really important to their business.
Yes, and in the past, Microsoft would say, hey, we would like you to make a computer like this. And they were like, oh, that's really fun. And then they would make their standard laptops and stuff. Yeah. And, this is this goes back 30 years.
You go ahead,
20 years.
Microsoft. You go make those. Yeah.
Well, even when PC makers were on board, like HP was the first company, and HP was often the first company to adopt anything, right? So they would come out with the first Media Center PC, and you go to launch on the first day, and it's like this tower. And they were like, yeah, we were sort of thinking about something that looked like a stereo. And they were like, yeah, we were thinking about a tower. And, they just, so I feel like Surface gives Microsoft a way to be like, look, this is what it could be like, And,
the laptop's the best seller, yes? By far.
Actually, I think the Pro is the best seller.
Really? Oh, interesting.
They haven't really talked
People
about that.
People want that convertible.
Yeah, the laptop's never done great per se, that I know about anyway. But they have, like I said, you have to have a laptop. You have to have that traditional form factor.
Yeah, But people like the detachable keyboard.
Well, yeah, and then they complain that they don't get one with the computer, and it's like, dude, the point of it is you can choose the one you want, and it's like, yeah, but it doesn't come with one. You're like, okay, listen, this would raise the price of this thing. You could pick the one because it's all different versions, right? And unfortunately, this one, one of the other differences with this one is that keyboard is not compatible with the other keyboards, right? So it's a smaller size. It doesn't have the magnets in the machine. So it doesn't do that thing where it kind of clips up and you can have the angled typing surface or whatever. So it's, smaller physically, but it also just lays flat, which, by the way, is interesting because it sort of positions this little computer tablet thing better against an iPad with a keyboard attached to it,
right?
Like an iPad Pro.
Right.
And I would say until and unless Apple does improve iPad OS, this is actually, I would say this is probably better for most people that want an iPad Pro type computer in the sense that it's thin, it's great battery life, but it actually runs real apps. And if you render a video and go check your email, it doesn't stop rendering the video. It's a real computer operating system. Right. So
I've definitely seen in the Microsoft dev community, this is the tablet reference device, is the Pro.
Yeah. It seems to be their one real success for whatever reason, which is why they keep making.
What's funny versions. Is like they really did build a good commercial tablet that almost nobody talks about.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's not thought of as a tablet. It's thought of as a Windows device, right?
Yep.
But it is a tablet. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, but if you go back to the original RT idea, and by the way, the Surface RT was the computer in the beginning. There weren't two. There was just going to be that one, and then they ended up realizing like, okay, we got to make a Pro version. It runs real Windows 8, whatever. It runs all because the RT just wasn't there yet, and ultimately, of course, was never there. But this was going to be that mobile. It can run that stuff. You can plug in a USB drive. You can attach a monitor. You can do all that stuff if you want, but this was about the mobile app platform and this thing as a device and kind of iPad compete. And, flashing forward now, what is it, 13 years later, it's not so much that that's what this is, but does have the platform underneath it that is more efficient, right? So it's running on Snapdragon, which is good. There's no fan. That's cool. It runs all your apps. It's just about 100% on that note now. There's not a lot missing.
So this is the coming of age of Snapdragon, of Windows on ARM.
Of ARM, yeah. I think so. Mm-hmm. Yep. So I think this is Microsoft sort of subtly saying, this is what we always wanted. And the previous little ones, they had little Surface computers were all Intel-based, but they were like garbage Intel, even in the scheme of Intel, they were garbage. Celeron, I think it was on one of them, and just terrible.
Yeah.
But
it sounds like this fall, like if I'm coming at this from an IT perspective, this fall with the new chipset is really the first time I'd seriously consider inside my organization.
Yeah. That's been the big push for these guys. So as businesses and meeting those compatibility issues. So I don't have the numbers right here in front of me, but they're super high 90% and native, and then 1 maybe 2% that don't work at all. But mostly it's just native, and then some emulated, and the emulated stuff runs great, and almost nothing doesn't work. So it's there.
What's this Surface Connect port that they?
That's the thing they don't have anymore. That's that blade. It's their version of MagSafe.
But
right?
they say it's on the 13-inch.
It is. That's the one that already exists. So the
this
new one
is the old
12.
one. The new one is the 12-inch.
I mean, they're not getting rid of the old one, right? The old one, so to speak, is a year old, but it's
Right.
it's
I see.
it's bigger.
I
and
see.
it has,
So the new thing is the
SSD.
12-inch.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And that MagSafe has saved my bacon this week
Mm-hmm.
because we have little boys running around here.
Yeah.
And they try to be careful around me, but they've tripped over that wire and it just pops
yeah.
off very nicely. And then they hand it back to me and I click it back in again. Like it does its job.
Yeah, when Apple introduced the MagSafe, that was a huge
Right.
improvement. I'm glad everybody's adopted that now.
Yeah.
The thing they used to
it's
have
the right
that
way to do that.
I still feel like no one has solved is the Apple for a while had those disc chargers where you would coil the cable. Remember?
Oh yeah,
Because it's like, what do you do with all this?
yeah.
Like it was always kind of a problem, but still is a problem.
Price point is good. $7.99 puts
Yeah,
it
I
right
think so.
square in the iPad.
Yep. Yeah.
category,
iPad Air, iPad Pro.
category. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
It's the size of and the price of an iPad Pro. And
Smart.
does it come with a stylus? No, that's also added.
No, everything's
Doesn't even
extra.
come with a
all,
watch charger.
They're all extras. Yeah.
Yeah.
They want it's a couple $100 for the pen, right? Like it's
know.
not a cheap thing, but so is Apple's.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, when I bought my daughter's birthday present was an iPad Pro, it ended up being more than the laptop.
Yeah, if
With
you
all
spec
the
out, you could spend
doohickeys.
$3,000 on an iPad Pro. By the way, if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Just load it up and
practically
go.
did. Yeah.
I mean, you really could, like over $3,000.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But I'd also say it's not a winning game for Microsoft just to try and go line by line with Apple. Apple still has the cachet any day of the week.
Oh yeah, but again, like Microsoft and Apple, even though it's not like they got together and agreed on this, but they both in their own separate ways were like, look, this we'll call it ARM based, but this device based PC is the future. And they've worked toward that in different ways. We talked a couple of weeks ago about how Apple maybe again is going to finally do what they should do with iPadOS, and we'll see what happens there. Microsoft, they only did the one rev really, so they kind of just went back to, okay, we're doing PC, and they kind of stuck to that. I mean, they still have the mobile app store, but it's all kinds of apps now, obviously. And then the mobile app platform is a desktop app platform now, so they've kind of come full circle on that. But I guess this is in that space. Like I said, for someone that wants this form factor and wants to run real apps, like there's some decent apps for iPad Pro, obviously, but these are literal the same apps. So if what you really care about is battery life and you want the touch for whatever reason, and maybe maybe you're on a plane, it's cramped and you want to watch movies, it's easy. You can control it with your finger. It's good, whatever. But
Actually, the pen's only $129.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I added the pen and I added the keyboard and I got the high-end processor, and that's still only $1,200. That's
iPad Pro. That's iPad Pro.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. But
no, it's cheaper
an
than
iPad Pro moderate spec, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
You
mean,
jack
okay,
the Pro up.
maybe the better example, like this is like 13-inch iPad Air with whatever the Magic Keyboard's called and the pen.
Okay, maybe it's closer
probably
to that than the
probably
Pro.
right in that price range. I would
Yeah,
bet.
because the Pro now has an M5 or M4. And
Yep.
Which I think is still the best chip made right now. Like it's
absolutely, especially for AI.
I wish it could be
workloads.
freed from Apple's terrible operating systems, but what are you going to do?
I'm
Doesn't
not
matter.
sure.
That's a
Are you
matter
going to
of,
advocate for
taste,
Windows here? Is that
Paul.
what you're doing? Okay.
As
It
in
is
you
a matter
have
of
no
taste, but some people have good tastes and some people like Apple products. I don't, it just depends.
Oh, the fight rages on.
Honestly.
I give you. I'll tell you. Hey, let's take a break, and we have more to talk about with Windows. We've got some AI. We got everything. Xbox news. A
lot of Xbox today.
I saw a big chunk of Xbox news, and a brown liquor pick of the week. Are we going to do something local?
No, not
No.
this time.
Okay.
No, I'm sticking with it's one of the ones I've missed and
Okay.
been on the list for a while. But the problem is that I can't take, once I open a bottle, I'm not going to put it in the suitcase to take it
and
home.
you're
right?
leaving. Yeah.
And I'm leaving. So it's
Yeah.
a bottle that I've opened here and is
Perfect.
staying here.
Staying here.
I have another weird Australian that was given to me literally on my way out the door in Melbourne, and so
It's a
I'll
little
do that when I get
man of some sort who was dropped off with a
It's about
basket in his hand.
tall.
His name
Weird
is
little Australian.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a
Get in the
break.
back of that stupid Buick Pontiac thing, whatever it was called, the Ute or whatever. He's just riding the back.
More Windows Weekly to come. So glad you're here, and so glad to have our sponsor with us. We've had them for some time now, US Cloud. I hope you're considering US Cloud. They are, after all, the number one Microsoft Unified Support replacement. We've been talking for a few months about US Cloud. I think we've introduced them. They are the global leader in third-party Microsoft support for enterprises, growing all the time, now supporting 50 of the Fortune 500. Why? Well, for a number of reasons. One, switching to US Cloud can save your business 30 to 50% over Microsoft Unified Premier support. But it's not only less expensive, it's better, it's faster, twice as fast, average time to resolution versus Microsoft. And they may help you out with things that Microsoft may be a little reluctant to help you out with. For instance, US Cloud now has a new offering, their Azure Cost Optimization Services. Why would you want to optimize your Azure costs? Well, let's be honest. When was the last time you evaluated that Azure usage? If it's been a while, you probably have some Azure sprawl, a little spend creep going on. But good news, saving on Azure is easier than you think with US Cloud. US Cloud offers an 8-week Azure engagement. It's powered by VBox. It will identify key opportunities to reduce costs across your entire Azure environment. You're going to get expert guidance, too, from US Cloud's incredible team of senior engineers, an average of over 16 years with Microsoft products. I mean, these are the pros from Dover. At the end of those 8 weeks, your interactive dashboard will identify, rebuild, and downscale opportunities and unused resources, which means you can take those dollars, reallocate those precious IT dollars, right, toward needed resources. And oh, by the way, I might put this in a little plug. If you want to continue the savings, invest that Azure savings in US Cloud's Microsoft support. That's what a few of the many US Cloud customers do. And then you completely eliminate your unified spend and the savings continue. Just ask Sam. He's the technical operations manager at Bede Gaming, B-E-D-E. He gave US Cloud 5 stars out of 5, saying, quote, "We found some things that have been running for 3 years, which no one was checking. These VMs were, I don't know, 10 grand a month." He says not a massive chunk in the grand scheme of how much we spend on Azure, but once you get to $40,000 or $50,000 a month, it really started to add up. That's a lot of savings. It's simple. Stop overpaying for Azure, identify and eliminate Azure creep, and boost your performance all in 8 weeks with US Cloud. Visit uscloud.com. Book a call today. Find out how much your team can save. That's uscloud.com to book a call today. Get faster, better Microsoft support for less. US Cloud. Thank you, US Cloud, for supporting Windows Weekly. And Mr. Paul Thurrott and Mr. Richard Campbell. What else is there? There's some more insider news, I think.
Yeah, we didn't get builds last Friday. That's actually kind of unusual. Usually Fridays are pretty busy. But other than that, we did get one more set of beta and dev builds, possibly Monday night. I don't remember. But, you know, again, they're on the same path. They did tell people in the beta program, the beta channel, that they will be dropping support for 23H2 soon. So those people who haven't opted into 24H2 there. Did I mention a little tired? Are going to be pushed over to that eventually, but for now, at least, you can stick on 23H2. So if you did go to 24H4, nothing major, but they're breaking out some HDR features so that you can configure them individually now. Some improvements to the little, what was the term? They had an awesome term for the, on the taskbar. If you look down at the taskbar and you've got apps running, there's a little pill of a sort. I think of that as a status indicator, right? So normally you'll have a little tiny, it's not a circle, but it's like a little tiny rounded rectangle if the app is running.
I think pill is a good description.
Pill is apparently the official term. If it's the selected app, the current app, it's longer, and it also shows status. So if you have like a file explorer download or file copy happening, you'll see like a tiny little progress bar in there.
Yeah, right. It's a little colored bar, right? Like you'd have to really notice that the corners are rounded on it, but it's a.
This is all I do, Richard, is look at this stuff. You
got a magnifying glass.
He's like, you have to be particularly mental to, and I'm like, no, I am. And so I think of it as like a app shortcut status indicator. Mm-hmm. In the Windows Insider post, they referred to it as the needy state pill.
Aww.
Which, honestly, I don't think is cool in 2025. I thought we were over the mental health thing. A little needy, but anyway, they're making those things bigger and wider, so they're more visible, I guess. Big deal. I don't know. And then, we're going to be seeing little changes to recall and click to do, I think, for the rest of our lives. But one of the things that's a little bit goofy about, there's a couple of things. So recall, aside from the controversy, is kind of a terrible user interface and also a terrible user experience in the sense that you have to still, I got to check this on a clean install now that it's going GA, it's sort of generally available, but definitely will be as of next Tuesday, is what the process looks like for installing the 4 SLMs, right? The small language models that you need, that this feature needs to work. Because the way it's worked for me to date, and I mean up until about 2 weeks ago, is you enable it and then you try to run it. It says, and it shows you this terrible marble, kind of like a marble rolling through a thing animation, and says, oh, hold on, you gotta install something first. Check Windows Update. You're like, all right. And then you check Windows Update. You're like, yep, I have this SLM to install. So you do that. It takes a while. You go back, run it again. It's like, oh, check it again. You got to look again. You do this 4 times. Mm-hmm. It's really bad. So apparently they are now experimenting with different, they're calling them UI treatments. And this is the UI, literally the UI for how you go back and forth in the timeline and look at each snapshot. It's a lot like file history, if you've ever used that feature, which is kind of legacy now, but probably dating back to Windows 7, I'm guessing. If not Windows 8, but probably Windows 7, old traditional desktop UI. This thing is more of a modern app. It's gross looking. It's terrible. They're looking at fixing that, but I hope they fix the UX as well. And the UX is that install part. Like this stuff should just happen in the background. Like it should, or here's an idea. How about installing all 4 of them at the same time? And, common sense. I don't know. Anywho, we're going to be dealing with that for a while. So this isn't big stuff, but dev beta, it's 24H2 ostensibly, but probably 25H2. And I think these things and whatever the new stuff is that I talked about earlier with the start menu, especially, I think this is the shift to this next release. And like I said, if there isn't a major secret pending, I would say 25H2 is probably the right name for this stuff, right?
You would think. And they're a little overdue. It is almost H2, and now you're going to bring it out? Okay.
I know. It's just whatever.
Oh, well, why would we maintain a naming convention? That takes all the fun out of it, really.
Yeah. Consistency is overrated, which is why I spell it with
an
a K.
adventure.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So last year, Microsoft started talking about Windows Server 2025, and then they released it in early November, if I remember correctly. And one of the marquee features of that release is hot patching, right? Which is a little bit misunderstood, but now we understand it all too well, because now we found out they're actually going to charge us per core for it on server, which is crazy. But I think we talked about that last week. The first hot patch update for Windows 11 is coming out in next week's Patch Tuesday. So at Ignite last year, as part of that Windows Resiliency Initiative, or whatever they called it, this was one of several new features, security features they talked about for Windows on the client. So it's the same thing as what they have on server. It's only for enterprise. You have to opt into it as an organization. You have to be using Intune to manage your environment. And of course, you have to have some specific kind of enterprise agreement with Microsoft. There's a list of things that are compatible. But the way hot patching works, if you have all those things and you want this, is quarterly, you will get a normal cumulative update. Cumulative update is the Patch Tuesday update, could be any combination of what they call quality and security updates, meaning new features plus security updates, right, and fixes. But the interim months will be these hot patch, and this is hot patch one word, which I don't like and no spell checker on earth likes, but the hot patches are the interim releases that come out. So those 2 months between each, quarterly release. And they're just security updates, which sounds pretty good to me. Mm-hmm. And they don't require updates, but you have to opt in.
They don't require reboots.
Reboots, right. What did I say? Did I not say reboots?
Updates.
Updates, sorry. They don't require reboots. So you have to have the previous quarter's baseline update, which is the normal cumulative update you will have rebooted. Mm-hmm. The next 2 will be hot patched. Only security updates. Awesome.
And only if you choose to pay the fee.
The fee doesn't apply on client.
Oh, so far. Okay.
Yeah. Well, so far, yeah. So apparently the April Patch Tuesday update is the baseline for the first hot patch, which is coming out next week. So
okay.
You're paying. Look, you are paying for this, right? You have Windows 11 Enterprise, E3,
Don't
E5.
know why you want hot patching on a client machine. Like that just seems odd.
Yeah. I think this feels like one of those checkbox bullet points on a slide type of deal because I forget the exact term for this. Steven Sinofsky used to use a term for features you had to have because people were going to ask. And it was like a complaint answer, basically. It's not the right term, but
right.
So you're like, okay, so you're adding hot patching on Windows Server. Gotcha. So it's the same code base as Windows 11. Yes. Okay. We're going to get that on the client as well. And the answer is, yeah, I guess, but you have to meet all these requirements and you're paying them a lot of money.
Right.
It's not tied to it being a Copilot Plus PC.
Honestly, we can debate the need for hot patching on server too, especially at a cost, just because for years now we've just gotten the practice of you run these machines in pools, you roll them off the pool to patch them and roll them back in and do a rolling update. And so you have 100% uptime. You just do it with multiple instances of clever scripting. And now, I don't know. My instinct is not to trust it. Like I don't.
This is like hot swapping a drive. Like I get it. This works. I believe you. I'm turning it off.
But you know what else works? Yeah, shut it off. Move it around. Turn it back.
I am positive you're correct. I am not doing it. Because I've touched the CPU on a computer and had it literally explode. Like I've had it burn with a little fire. So I've seen hardware problems. I'm not kidding. Like I've been slightly electrocuted by these things. Like I don't trust it. And look, I'm not celebrating this, but Windows reboots pretty quick. I mean, what's the big deal? It's not, I'm not, I don't know. I also find it odd that we can do hot swap hardware and we haven't had hot patching in software ever. What? Come on.
It's way more teams involved, right? As soon as there's that many moving parts, it's like, listen, you're going to need a boot sequence.
Yeah. I don't know. Listen,
let's talk about, not being able to fix network stacks without rebooting the machine. Like there's a bunch of decisions that were made in Windows very early on that we are still paying.
Oh my God. I've absolutely told this story on this podcast, but this is one of the most beautiful moments I will never forget in my life. We doing the round for XP of interviews with different people from different teams. And there was a Russian guy who was in charge of the network stack. And the big thing in XP was they were adding Wi-Fi support for the first time, which infamously went out the door with no security controls whatsoever. And at the launch of this event, I connected to all of their back-end systems from the audience. Like it was so insecure, it was ridiculous. But anyway, months before this, I met this guy. And the big thing at the time was you could have, this is so stupid today when you think this limitation will make no sense to anybody, but you could have the Wi-Fi connection configured for 2 different Wi-Fi networks. So if it detected one, it would connect to that. And if it saw the other one, it would connect to that. And the idea was you're going to have one at home and you're going to have one at work. And I was like, okay, but there are going to be Wi-Fi networks out there, hotels, Starbucks, whatever. I mean, why can't you, if you can have 2, why can't you have an arbitrary number? Like why couldn't you have 3 or 4 or 5, whatever the number might be? And he goes, no, it's impossible. And I was like, all right, sorry.
Never.
He was really upset about this. And I was like, okay, but sure enough.
If you understood the problem, Paul, you wouldn't have asked that stupid question.
Yeah, you don't know how bits fly through space.
Wow.
I was very upset about that. Anyway, now we Anyone with any device on Earth, my God, they switch seamlessly between everything. It's crazy. It's awesome. I mean, anyway. What are we talking about? All right, so that was Enterprise 2024H2. In fact, I do. I definitely have here. I have some laptop here is running Enterprise, but you have to be on one of these plans and use Intune. So you can't just, well, maybe this is probably I bet this is a registry hack I could do, but I'd like to see this. I'm kind of curious about hot patching, just to see what it looks like, and then realize I don't need it, basically, which is pretty much everything in technology.
You're going to test it, and you're going to be frustrated by it. I know your path.
Oh, speaking of which, so I had that blue screen thing on my Surface laptop and couldn't get Ubuntu going, right? So I came home. I'm like, all right, here we go. You got all kinds of laptops here. Break them out. Got them all charging and everything. Yeah, it doesn't work. So I talked to them about this. Well, I talked to them because they brought it up. They were talking about all the milestones they've hit this year. It's great. Everything's going great. They got this Ubuntu thing. And I'm like, yeah, let me stop you right there. I know you made an announcement about this, and maybe it's me, and they're like, yeah, it doesn't work. Like it turns out you actually have to modify the bootloader for this particular machine, and it's super technical. Like it's not something you would ever know how to do. And
not just Surface turning off secure boot, more than that.
Yeah. No, it's not secure, but it's not that. I mean, in fact, if anything, the impetus for this, honestly, was you don't have to turn that stuff off anymore. Before, with Linux, you would turn off secure boot for sure. Right. But you also had to make sure BitLocker wasn't on if you wanted to do a dual boot. Once it was there, you could re-enable it as long as you didn't want to access the files from Linux.
Right.
But one of the advances in 2504 is it understands BitLocker. Like it's secure boot's not a problem anymore. That's been a little while, I guess, but it actually sees and understands BitLocker and respects it and works with it. It's fine. And I was like, okay, I got to see that, and I've gotten it working on an Intel computer, but I mean, I wouldn't give that to my worst enemy. I want this on a real computer. And it turns out this is still early days. So I may still frig with it like on a different computer, but cause I have a couple I could use, but, on there's a different set of things that don't work on every computer. They're all a little bit different. So
is this an Ubuntu issue or what?
It's the integration or the interaction, I'll call it, between Ubuntu and the underlying hardware. So this is something Qualcomm is working on with Ubuntu, and they have this community site where people kind of are solving problems and all this stuff. But like Surface Laptop, there's some list of a couple of things that just don't work on that side. But the biggest known issue is the one I experienced, which is it will not boot from that disk. It will not boot. Like you can make it boot. You have to edit a file, like I said, do all these things, but
that pretty much stops you cold if you can't boot from the.
Yeah, it's. And I tried everything. I brought this up on an HP, I think an OmniBook, EliteBook, I don't remember which one, but I got the same exact problem, blue screen. And I was like, okay, so now I'm starting to, I've gotten so comfortable with this blue screen. it's no longer shocking to me. It's just like, yep, there it is. My old friend. Hello, darkness.
Hello, blue screen, my old friend.
Yep. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to keep working on that.
So is that the only distro that works on Snapdragon?
That I'm not sure of. I eventually,
feel like there
all
must
of the
be
mainstream
others.
ones will. Like a lot of them build off of Ubuntu or Debian or whatever. And I in time, I think this will be more
early
common.
Days. Yeah,
but it's early days. Yeah,
yeah.
It's still early days. I was like, I thought this was. I was like, this is, we're going to do this, and it's like,
yeah. It says only bleeding edge or rolling release distros like OpenSUSE, Tumbleweed, or developer preview builds of Ubuntu are likely to work at all.
Huh. Well, they moved it into mainstream. So I think it was 2410 maybe, or even 2404. I don't remember, but this is when it started to work, but this was the first time they released a general purpose GA ISO.
Right.
But it's still not there.
So according to my AI, yeah, there are issues.
there are
Tumbleweed
issues.
will boot on some devices.
Yep. I don't have
Arch has possible with heavy tweaking. Fedora Rawhide experimental limit. Yeah, you really don't have a lot of choices for Snapdragon Elite. That's too bad because I would like to get that nice little.
Yeah, so there's an Ubuntu
Linux
community site that has very detailed information about how to get this stuff working. It's disgusting. I mean, it's really hard.
It's hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you
I'll
guys
get
still have WSL. I mean, if you really, probably the best way to do it, put WSL on your Windows install, right? Wouldn't that
it's the easiest way to do it right now. And it has good support for, obviously all the command line stuff works, but it also has good support for desktop apps.
Yeah.
If you need that for some reason, maybe if you're a developer, you're testing, whatever it might be, maybe you want
I just want Emacs, man. I just want Emacs.
Yeah.
Emacs is life, my friend.
Listen, I can't argue the point. I think
You wouldn't want to argue the point.
no, I mean, I feel like for everyone, there is that one thing, that's it's so out of date and
But you can run Docker on WSL, right?
yeah. Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
That would be another one. Emacs and Docker would be kind of give you most of what you need, I would think. But it depends what you need.
Well, it depends on what you need, right? Some people are literally looking for, I don't want Windows on this computer anymore, right? And I don't know. I look, if you're dual booting on a physical computer, you're not getting a lot of work done, is what I'm hearing. You're kind of going back and forth a lot, but this is a little experimental for me. I just want to try it. I just want this to work. I feel like this Snapdragon platform, which has done wonders for Windows. I mean, think about what it could do for a lighter OS like Linux or Chrome OS, right? Where these things are already more efficient than Windows and not more modern necessarily, although I guess arguably Chrome OS might be. I just think it's incredible what it's done for Windows. Like, what could it be like?
I don't know if you're following this, but we have black smoke now.
Black smoke. Yeah. So you gotta open up the flume a little more. You're getting kind of a backdraft.
They keep putting wet straw in. That seems to be a bad idea. I don't
If
know.
only they had a Holden Ute, then they could have blue smoke.
Yeah.
Yep.
If they only had a Ute.
Yeah. Throw in some of those crystal things to get the multicolors going.
There you go.
It's interesting. The New York Times has a live feed of the chimney.
Sure. That's it's exciting.
That's the thing.
It's nighttime in
Exciting times in the Vatican.
Yeah.
Shall we Skype it?
Yeah. So the day came and it went.
Nobody noticed.
I feel like I should have done something on Sunday to mark this because we wouldn't exist without Skype.
Even the people who kind of mock it, I don't know that they remember correctly because everyone relied on this for a long time.
Yeah.
Like it was really good for a long time.
Yeah. .NET Rocks depended on it for ages.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Twit literally started because somebody called me on the radio show with Skype and I said, "What are you using? You sound so good." And they said, it's this thing called Skype.
I'm on my computer.
I'm on my computer. And I said, "But
Shut up, I'm on the radio."
If I'd had a light bulb over my head, it would have gone off because I said, wow, that means I can do a podcast with my far-flung friends.
Yeah.
And it will sound good. It didn't sound all that good, but Zoom has really improved on that.
Yeah, we migrated off of Telos 1+1s and landlines to Skype.
Wow. Yeah.
And then I ran, then the multi-laptop Skype before the NDI version. And then suddenly it was over. It's like, you realize it from the guests. When the guests would suddenly, I'd say, okay, well, we're using Skype. And it's like, oh, yeah, Skype. I wonder where that is.
People who've been watching this show for a long time may remember how perturbed Paul would get when we called him, when we Skyped into him, and all of his devices
Oh, my God.
Rang at once.
go off.
There are certain repetitive sounds that just like it's like trauma now.
Yeah.
I'm going to give Paul just a little PTSD.
Oh my God. I would be like an orchestra of these things. Yeah. And they wouldn't stop. So I would be on the call, but they'd still be ringing over there. It's like, guys, come on.
I mean, the good news is that Teams still does this, and I've got about 4 devices.
It doesn't make that sound though, does it?
No,
but it still rings every device.
It should be under the rings though, like under classic or whatever. You go down and there it is. Like,
just a little.
You're trying to make me cry, and it's going to work.
We could have a little parade, kind of a New Orleans style.
This is like a rave club version, like.
Yeah,
it is. It's a remix. Yeah. Or are you music? Skype, we hardly knew ye. Actually, that was the problem. We really knew ye way too well.
There's a baby who lives below us in our apartment. He's not there all the time, but when he is there, he makes I might have referred to this before. He screams, and I call him the Eaglet. So I'm already traumatized by this because like we were on a trip somewhere. We were flying home. We were out in the world the other day, and some kids crying in the restaurant. And I'm like, the Eaglet has found us.
The Eaglet has landed.
I just can't. It's like you can't escape these sounds, Anyway, okay. So Skype's dead. So sorry, Skype. If it makes you feel any better, they did certify it right at the end there. There's a
it had been going
AI bot built
while.
in. It's a vector for spam. Or now it's off.
It really became a spam.
Oh my God.
I mean, I stopped logging in because it was like a flood.
Well,
of
I
you
was
can tell
only-
Microsoft wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
I would only use it for the test my audio thing, right? Like, it had a really good test thing where you.
And
could
I kind of
speak to it
like
and
the
play it
Skype
back.
lady. I will
it
miss
worked
her.
before you were in a call, which maybe they fixed in Teams. I don't remember. I don't know. But this was a problem with Teams for a long time when they first came out. Was you had to be in a call before you could test the audio or video. And it's like, guys,
That's not right. No, now I noticed that it's in Windows 11. One of the patches of Windows 11 now, when you get down to the audio section, there is a make a call where it'll record you and play it back to you. So
that's right. Yep.
I really didn't have a use for Skype anymore. But I noticed every time I would fire it up to do that, it just was getting worse and more ads, more stuff.
It's always like I would be part of a Bitcoin group, and
I'd been added to something.
How? Jeez, guys, come on, 101.
The test call will begin. You can test your microphone, speakers, camera.
I want to see if
Click
this
on End Test Call when you're done.
will it have the audio.
What's up with the music?
Oh, this is some YouTube.
That's it. Thanks for watching the video.
This poor guy has made a whole bunch of Skype tutorials, which have died along with Skype. Although because it's YouTube, nothing ever dies.
Except for my channel, apparently. But no,
they can be killed. It just doesn't die.
It doesn't die a natural death.
No natural deaths. I just want the Skype call test audio. I want to find it somewhere. I miss her. Remember the Skype lady?
Voice,
She had,
yes.
What was the accent? It wasn't. It was.
Yeah, I think it might have been Aussie, right? Like it was.
It may, or maybe South African. It was a very strange. What I really think it was an Estonian who had learned English.
From an Australian.
An Australian.
From watching Friends over Skype with an Australian.
And so it had a strange, because it wasn't quite an accurate accent. It was like a learned accent of some kind. I don't know. Anyway, we'll miss it. We'll miss it. It's a sad day.
No.
Yeah.
What does the Teams ringtone sound like? Is it good?
It's just a farting sound. It's kind of like it's a long flatulence.
I gave you a real softball there.
It's a balloon deflating.
Talk about a setup.
It's like you ever I had to set an alarm the other day. I don't set an alarm normally, right? You ever go through every alarm on your phone or device?
They're terrible. They're all awful.
Every one of them. It's like every one of them is this grating.
Yeah.
Well, furthermore, I have PTSD from every one of them because Lisa's used every one of them. And so, I
found the most pleasant one I could. And I woke up to me going, what the fuck is that? And it's like, oh, right. I set this. I did this to myself. This is the worst. Anyway, so it's one of those.
No
things.
audio alarms, please. Just the vibrating wrist.
That's not a bad one. If you don't mind wearing a watch to bed, just have a little.
I do wear a watch to bed, but I don't trust anything. Like I always have to set two of these things. That's the other thing that happens. Like you actually get up with an alarm. You're like, nice, I did it. And then the other one goes off. You're like, kill me, please.
My goal in life is to never have to use an alarm.
There you go.
Exactly.
I will have made it when I never have to use an alarm. Pretty much
I never use an alarm
now.
except if we're traveling in the morning.
Right. Exactly.
Or like on Monday, I had to drive into New York or Tuesday, whatever it is.
Yeah, sometimes you have to get up early.
Sometimes. And
Don't
those
want to do
days
that anymore.
There's an affront, it's the worst.
Sometimes you've got to do a live stream at 3:00 in the morning.
Oh, so sorry.
Sometimes. I signed up.
You should just stay up all night and then you don't have to have an alarm.
I couldn't do that.
No.
It's like what's worse than 4 hours of sleep? Me on 28 hours of awake.
Yeah.
True. Or whatever the number is. This is no way.
One more little piece before we take a break. Something new from Google.
Google. Yeah. So I referenced this a little bit earlier, but if you're testing Android 16, if you have a Pixel or whatever, it's on this truncated development cycle because they're moving the launch back for their partners, primarily Samsung, wants to launch the new folding devices.
At the same time. Yeah,
July,
that makes sense. Yeah.
So that's fine. But that also means that this one's on the shortest development cycle they've ever had, which is fine. But there's really no major new features in here. The only thing I've seen that's kind of interesting is this, like Apple has those live notifications that are part of the dynamic island, which is super useful. And actually Samsung has some stuff like that of their own in One UI. But other than that, not much going on. But it turns out they're actually secretly working on two different things, which could be pretty big. Now, it might not be an Android 16 right at the launch, but later in the cycle, they do a quarterly updates maybe. So there's a major new UI thing coming, which looks a lot like One UI actually, which I think is very pretty. And then also a DeX-like desktop environment, right, where this thing could be plugged into a dock and keyboard, mouse, big display, et cetera, et cetera. So, that's kind of cool. And that's why for 25H2 with Windows, it's like I kind of hope there's something hidden in there that we haven't seen. It doesn't have to be major new features, but just a kind of a refresh, something.
Feeling a little Android jealousy, are you?
Well, Android, I don't know. Compared to iOS, Android's been kind of on the slow boat for a while now, as far as big new features and stuff. Every release is kind of Leo, you're on the completely wrong side.
I know. They're doing, for the first time ever, at Google I/O, the week before the Google I/O keynote, they're going to do an Android keynote.
Right. So interestingly, so Microsoft just did the Surface thing ahead of Build, where last year they did it at Build. That's a good point. They didn't announce a new Windows version, but they did announce new features ahead of Build. Android is doing this, sort of, right? I mean, so it's interesting. I mean,
that's a really good point.
It might just be they want to focus on AI at these shows. It's probably what it is.
What it is. Absolutely. You just nailed it. Yeah, Build is the 19th, 9 a.m. We're going to stream that. A little point of order. We're only going to do that in the Discord because, and that's not Microsoft's fault. It's not Google's fault. It's Apple's fault. Let's call a spade a spade. The Apple lawyers have tried to take us down on both YouTube and Twitch in the past. So we decided, we're not going to stream any of this stuff on YouTube, on our normal platforms. We're just going to stream it to the club and the Club Twit, which is good if you're a Club Twit member. It means you can participate. Not so good if you're not. So join the club, $7 a month. Yeah. Ad-free versions of all the shows.
Did you look into just doing it we're doing it live with the event, but we're not going to broadcast the event?
We tried that last time, and that was so weird.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Paul's now in the wrong spot. I got to rotate everybody.
I wasn't going to say anything because
Okay. We did that last time. We just talked along and then said, if you want to watch it. Yeah. But it doesn't. And the other problem with that is if you're watching it later, it's really hard to do. So we just, first of all, my opinion is it's fair use. We're doing commentary.
Yeah.
And so it's fair use to stream that. So I don't think there's any reason for us.
You're not ready to lawyer up for that.
But I'm not going to go to court over it. We've appealed it in the past and succeeded, but it's just not worth it.
It's absolutely.
And it would be terrible to lose our YouTube channel. Just ask Paul Thurrott. So
I was slightly traumatized by that.
So I don't want to take the chance. But to join the club, this is a chance to join the club. We're going to do Build on the 19th. We're going to do Google I/O on the 20th. Actually, if you join the club and you say you really want us to do the Android event, I wasn't planning on it, but if you really want us to join the club and say, Leo, do the Android event. We're going to do WWDC on June 9th. So all the keynotes now will be in the Club Twit Discord.
It's definitely going to be an Android 16 announce, like RTM and
whatever. They might. I wonder if they'll do any hardware. Probably not, though. Right?
I don't know. I mean,
it's not time. It's not the normal time. But
they've done that before, right? 2 years ago? I think they announced all the new devices at I/O. Am I remembering that correctly? Or maybe some of them. Maybe the Fold and
way back when they used to, because they used to put a phone under your chair.
Yeah. They used to do the A series then, but they've released that. So I don't know.
Twit.tv/clubtwit if you're not a member. Let us continue on with the program of which you are listening to and talk about antitrust action.
I can't believe this is back in conversation again, but okay.
Well, the other thing is it's such an unknown. I mean, Google and Apple, those cases are over. But Microsoft's supposedly under investigation. There's new investigations of Apple.
Nothing is ever over in this space.
Well, that's the thing is, and because of the new administration, everything is topsy-turvy. So I don't know what you can say about anything, except that Apple got really spanked.
Oh my God, they got reamed. If you had said to me, listen, we're going to pay you a lot of money. I want you to write this complete fantasy version of Antitrust coming down hard on Apple or whatever, I'd be like, okay. I would not have come up.
Lied, Apple.
Oh my God. She has referred this case to the Attorney General to go after an individual from Apple who lied on the stand.
Yeah.
And this is the most blisteringly, I've never seen anything like this. This is outrage.
There were 3 words in the decision by Judge Yvonne Gonzalez Rogers that really stood out for me. She was talking about how Apple CEO Tim Cook had a choice between doing what she said, listening to Phil Schiller as marketing director, doing what she said, or listening to that liar and doing what he suggested. And then the 3 words were, Cook chose poorly.
Yeah. She said Apple could have done the right thing at any step of the way. Instead, they chose the most anti-competitive path every single time.
It was, as we said at the time, malicious compliance.
Yes, but it's amazing to finally see. So look, we live in the United States. We've been looking at the EU saying, dear God, we're never going to get this here. Like, what's going on? And then this happens, and you're like, oh my God. Like, this is amazing. And this is how you turn mostly a victory for Apple into, oh God, you just lost control of the App Store. Now, they're going to,
they're going to appeal. And actually, we talked about this yesterday on MacBreak Weekly. And Alex Lindsay pointed out that Apple did comply to the letter of the law. Maybe they didn't comply to what Judge Rogers felt was the spirit of it, but they did comply. And the fact that she doesn't like it doesn't mean they did something wrong necessarily, right?
I think they did something wrong.
I do,
but
they charged, they said, okay, you can have your store, but instead of charging 30%, we're going to charge 27%.
Yeah. And the judge was like, I have an idea. How about 0%?
0%.
How about you don't charge any money for stuff that, there's all this like just basic stuff. Like Walmart has an app and you can buy a sweater and Apple doesn't take a cut. But Amazon has a Kindle app and they try to sell an ebook and Apple wants 30%.
Apple doesn't even want, well, this was the point, was Apple wouldn't even let the Kindle app say that you could buy it.
No, I know that.
Anywhere.
I mean, but
which is ridiculous.
You had to sell it through the app in the original. Like, you couldn't
sell it in the app. Amazon decided, no, we're not going to do that. So they just didn't mention that you could buy books.
That's just unbelievable. So this is what I wrote, so today, if you live in the United States, open the Kindle app, click on a book. There's a link. It's called Get Book.
Yeah,
get a book. Buy it. And there's no extra fee.
So nice.
This is the thing. Like, there are these Apple fans who are like, oh, this company's the best. They do everything great. They're wonderful. And I feel, I'm doing the right thing. I support this company and blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. Like, I don't care what you think about this company. You can't look at this and be like, oh, no, there's a reason. There's a rationale. There isn't. And that was one of the things that the judge pointed out was, like, I asked you repeatedly to explain how you got to 30%. You don't have an answer. There is no answer. It's an arbitrary number that was invented, 15 years ago, never revised, and it doesn't make any sense. Credit card companies charge 2 or 3% on transactions. Why? What are you doing exactly that is over and above what they're doing? Please explain this. And they can't. Also, I mean, how do you, Microsoft went to them and said, all right, we're going to do game streaming. And yeah, okay, we'll just charge you a fee for every game that your players stream. They're not buying the games, they're streaming them. Yep, no, we understand. You still have to pay a fee. But Netflix streams movies and Spotify streams music, and you don't charge them a per stream fee. They're not streaming through you, they're streaming from us. It
costs you nothing.
And the reason is Apple has a game service called Apple Arcade, and it competes, and that's anti-competitive. That's just all it is. It's why does Apple want to charge Kindle another 30% because Apple has something called Books, and they have their own bookstore, and they want you to buy books there. And so as soon as this thing went down, a bunch of companies were like, all right, we're just doing this now. They're like, and all these companies that make these announcements, like, we're going to lower our prices by up to 30%. Nice. And this stuff drives me crazy. I love that a judge in the United States, not in Europe, came down like this, because this is what we've needed. Someone just to point out the obvious. And man, was she was ripped.
She's pretty
this
angry.
Company used a lot of all caps. This injunction is effective immediately. It's not a negotiation. It's just amazing. And then the list of restrictions is so beautiful. She just stripped away everything that Apple wants to do. It's like all Apple had to do was, if Apple had come back, I'll even go as high as 10%. But if Apple had come back and said, we're going to charge what credit card companies charge.
Right.
I don't think anyone would have said anything. I think we would have been happy for this win. I think they could have gone as high as 10%. We could just make numbers up because we're just making numbers up. Who cares? But they were like, no, we're going to do 27 because they know that once we tack on the credit card fees, now it's basically 30%. And you have to jump through all these hoops. And we still didn't let you communicate the way you want and, all that stuff. And she just made Apple look like the asses that they are. They're just so terrible. So terrible.
Well, it's a group of people working there whose measure of their quality of their work is the amount of money the store makes. And so,
it's absolutely. I think that was part of the problem. I don't think because they didn't really understand what 30% even meant when they did it. Yeah. And then it became a real generator of revenue. And they were like,
it made billions, literally billions.
Yikes.
Well, and Apple doesn't have that many revenue streams. Let's be clear. And the margin on the store is nearly 100%.
I think it's literally, this is the thing. It's like, this thing isn't free. It's like, it actually kind of is.
It's pretty close to
you
free,
understand. Yeah. Like, I don't know if you.
But for what is really a hardware company.
Yep.
This is the highest margin business they've ever had.
Yep. It's incredible. So anyway, we'll see what happens there. But this is that thing I was talking about with Google, but it applies to Apple equally well, which is like, look, you need to come to the table and work with these people because then you have a say in the outcome. This is the most extreme example I've ever seen of that. I mean, where, like I said, if they 10% or lower, I don't think anyone would have said a word. It would have been like, okay, you know what? This is a huge win coming from these guys. Yeah, we'll take it.
Yeah, they misread the room.
Oh my God, big time.
Yeah.
So that's happening. And then and speaking of revenues that Apple will soon be losing, US v. Google, there's two versions, right? There's the search one and then the ad one. This is the final week of remedy hearings for the search trial. Eddie Q is up there today.
This is the one that wants Chrome taken out of
right. Yeah, the divesting of Chrome, et cetera, et cetera. I haven't published this yet, but I'm trying to contort this into something that actually makes sense for this case. But the better outcome for the world in that case would honestly be to take Chromium away from Google. You can keep Chrome, take away Chromium, right? Make it an open standard, literally, because it's open source and it's free.
It's open source, but Google
controlled by Google. It's not like it's not really owned by Google. But it's kind of fuzzy, but
it's
other companies
who are the maintainers.
Yeah. And I even though they would complain about this, I almost have the perfect company to take it from them as well. And that would be Mozilla. Let them control this. And this is their mission. The Mozilla Foundation is open web, open standards, freedom, privacy, blah, blah,
one would argue all Mozilla needs to do is fork it and everybody go, right? It is GitHub for crying out loud.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair. Right. So, well, anyway, I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to work through, how could this even apply to this case? Because this case is very specifically about advertising. But when you talk about denying Google the fruits of their ill-gotten gains, et cetera, they're going after the distribution. Distribution is primarily Chrome, Android, et cetera.
Yeah, and I still see this as a negotiation as much as the other judge said no. It's like, okay, well, we'll take Chrome from you. Now come to the table with a consent decree where you're going to stop buying.
That's right. That could very much happen. I hope they're looking at this Google or Apple thing and being like, yeah, let's go. Maybe we should work with these guys. I hope they're getting the message, but they could have a say in the outcome. And look, Chrome, they could still build all the tracking and nonsense that they have in Chrome, but they would just do it at the Chrome level. There's some of that is actually in Chromium, right? So Chromium browser makers will strip out the Google stuff, and put in their own stuff.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be there to begin with. Like, let's make this.
Well, any argument for us all working together on Chromium is so that we all have a compliance standard that we all contribute to, right? Yeah, and so if you fork this and everybody went with the fork rather than, and just Google was left behind, like now Google has the problem of there's a better version of Chromium being built now.
That's right.
Over on that fork.
There's still small examples of this. I mean, Microsoft, we talked about this, I think, last week, had contributed back the text rendering that they did for Edge to Chromium. Until that happened, text looked much better on Edge than it did on other Chromium browsers, including Chrome, right? So on Windows. But Mozilla is freaking out because they're going to lose their payment from Google because of this. This is Google's version of Netscape in a way where, or no, not Netscape, or of Apple, where Apple kind of is like, oh, let's invest in Apple. Look, we have competition for our antitrust trials. Even I told you there's competition, They're kind of keeping these guys around. Yeah. There's no way that Mozilla is worth a damn to them. I mean, they have no market share at all. And Mozilla is like, we got to have open, we have to have competition. It's like, yeah, but not at that level, The worst thing about being a developer is having to support multiple platforms. And, we have Android, iOS, we have Windows and Mac, we have different versions of the web now. I mean, or you have this small company with no resources trying to keep up with Chromium and to a lesser degree, Safari, Gecko, whatever whatever Safari, what's Safari's rendering engine? I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Trying to keep up with the big guys. These are platform makers that have agendas, and you get back to the rendering engine is no longer a competitive advantage. Right. That's right. It shouldn't be. You compete on features, I'd like to see Apple use this thing and build their privacy stuff on top of it. Google could build their tracking stuff on top of it. I don't care. They can do whatever they want. You can look at any browser, Opera, Brave, which does the privacy security thing, or Edge, whatever. They build features on top of this thing. That's how they compete. No one is saying our version of the rendering engine is, 8%. Actually, Microsoft just said that, but usually no one is saying that. Right. The point is this stuff is all 100% compatible. And that's what it should be. We don't compete for different kinds of electricity. Doesn't mean we don't have different electrical providers, but necessarily. We also have different electrical systems in different parts of the world. That's right. But I mean, within in where you live, you don't have Bob's electricity runs at whatever wattage or volts, and this one runs at something different. That's not where you compete. This is infrastructure. Anyway, it's become plumbing, and so maybe it needs to be that way. Yep. The fact that a company has managed to leverage that to control a market is a separate issue, really. Yep. The remedy doesn't make sense except in the context of forcing a consent decree. Yeah. It is tricky. The judge laid out rules for them for their proposed remedies, and they were very specific, right? The goal is to prevent these abuses from continuing in the future. We don't want them to expand them into AI. It's like you have to kind of work in this framework, and a lot of people look at oh, these guys are idiots. They're telling them to take away the browser. It's like, oh, hold on a second. They're not they're looking at how they get this stuff out into the world, right? Like, how do they get here? They have these deals with Apple, Samsung, Mozilla. They have this monopoly that they've been able to extend or whatever, or increase through these illegal means. Like, how do we stop this? And it gets hairy, unfortunately. But they were going to break up Microsoft, right? That's pretty clean. This one, it's like, well, we're only going to take away one of your apps. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, not comparatively. Well, the argument was you've been leveraging Google to do these, questionable things. Or you've been leveraging Chrome to do these questionable things, so we'll pull Chrome from you. Yep. Yeah, Sundar Pichai said something to the effect of, well, you're making this so that this isn't a viable business. Like, we might not want to invest in this anymore. And they're like, right, that's the point. Yeah. We're trying to make this right.
Wait a minute. You mean we can't make infinite amount of money from this now?
Yeah. I mean, but what have we been doing? We're just stealing everyone's personal data. What's the problem? I don't know. So we'll see.
Out of Sync in our Discord said, what about making Google create a new nonprofit company to maintain Chrome instead of selling it and require them to provide support for, say, 5 years? That's actually a good remedy.
This is actually what I just said in a sense, right? Like I specifically said Mozilla, but I mean, to me, what you take away from them is Chromium. Like, you can have your stupid browser.
But that's the thing is you can't, if you're going to do that, you have to somehow make it not just worse, right? Don't give it to Perplexity.
No. It has to be an open standard. That's the point. A truly open standard. Yeah, where all the companies that are part of that organization get some kind of a vote on whatever features or whatever goes into the thing. That the point of this is to benefit the web, to benefit the people that use it, to keep this thing open.
Right. But if you look at who's wants it, it's OpenAI, Perplexity, Yahoo,
which is
Oracle.
a great reason to take that away.
Don't let them do that. That would not be a good remedy.
Right. Yeah, you're right. We're gonna trade one dragon for another, basically.
And Puchai said you can't make us sell our give away our search secret sauce, because then that's all we got, which is a good point. And I don't think you want to take away $20 billion a year from Apple, but maybe you do.
Don't you?
$100 million from Mozilla means they're out of business, is what Mozilla says.
I know,
but more Firefox.
Listen, there's a really good argument to be made that if you as a business only exist because you're being paid off by the devil, maybe your business is not great. Like you're being paid by a company. You don't use any of their stuff. You don't use their rendering engine. You don't use any of their browser stuff. You're just taking money, which at 2% of the web browser market, I think Google's overpaying them.
Well,
whatever they're paying. I don't even know.
Is that the browser doesn't make money unless you do these egregious things, right?
Right. So it was
you can't
CFO,
charge people for a browser. We know you can't sell a browser anymore.
No, of course, but. Look, the other companies that make browsers that are not platform makers, right? So not Apple, not Google, not Microsoft. They're in a very different position, right? And Opera, Vivaldi, Brave, Mozilla, whatever. These are small companies, right? These are not big tech companies. And they all have... not altruistic. I mean, they may
all be being supported by Google. You realize? I mean, the revenue from sharing from sending Google search traffic is probably what's keeping them alive.
Well, but the thing is, that shouldn't actually go away, right? The deals that they're trying to get rid of they're these pay for play. The point of the deals is to keep competitors out. One of the things Apple suggested was like, well, maybe it was Google suggested this. You could have like a different provider for incognito searches or whatever. And it's like, you're missing the point. The point is you're paying a lot of money to be on that platform. In Mozilla's case, I think you're overpaying. I don't think that's worth a damn. I don't think it's worth anything. If they were just doing revenue sharing on search, whatever, people would just pick Google. It would be fine. For the short term, by the way, that's about to change. That's the other problem. People are starting to turn to AI now for search, and that was one of the things Eddie Q talked about today. And
there's always been the pressure on how many people search within Facebook or search within Amazon, depending on what they're doing, right? In some ways, search markets are already fragmented, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. The point here is, if your product is competitive, then you don't need to do these underhanded things to continue to compete successfully.
That's right. And if your product was competitive, you wouldn't have your one income stream. The way the CFO of Mozilla put it was, if I remember correctly, was Firefox is 90% of Mozilla's revenues. 85% of those revenues come from Google.
Right.
Just giving them money.
But the other side of this
is that's not a business. That's a charity.
Yeah. And Google has been hooked on their ad revenue. They haven't improved the product. Like, one of the reasons they got caught with their pants down over all this AI stuff is because they refused to disrupt their primary revenue source of that homepage on search.
One of the, I think I mentioned this last week. If not, it was probably 2 weeks ago, but this comes up from time to time. One of the things that people have a hard concept or a hard thing understanding is, sorry, my phone just started ringing. That's curious. Are these sort of theoretical situations? Like, you'll say, Google has the best search engine in the world. Yep. However, it could be way better if Google wasn't constantly stopping competition from occurring. And you're like how? You're like, I don't know. You can't really explain it because what you don't see is what doesn't happen because of what they're doing, right? So if you look at what just happened with Apple, it may be temporary, whatever. But if you look at it, you can see a real world outcome of Apple not being allowed to do everything they want. All of a sudden, these services are like, oh, now we can allow you to buy stuff on your iPhone because or now we are going to lower our prices by up to 30%. And, oh, you're like, oh, that's way better. Yeah, I know. It's not always good for big tech to do exactly what they want all the time.
Yeah.
So it's hard to imagine when it's theoretical, but with the Apple thing, you can look and say, see, this is what it could look like. And you're like, this looks pretty good. I know. And it's like, but what about the children? Like what about no one's talking about the safety and security features built into the store. Right. Because I'm buying a book from Amazon, you freaking idiot. And that has nothing to do with what you're talking about. You're not providing a service here. Yeah. I have a direct connection with this company. Why am I giving you some of that money? That's crazy.
You're the medieval lord with the castle that hangs a chain across the river.
Yep.
And
exactly right.
And extracts
the boat
a
stops
fee. And has no choice. If it wants to do its business, it has to pay.
Which is why when the Microsoft trial happened, we brought back that term VIG, which comes out of Shakespeare basically, and it's from that era. And that's what that was. It was a VIG, So when you're in power and there's no controls on you, this is what you do. You behave terribly. So anyway.
And you stop innovating on your product because it's more profitable. Just keep controlling your market.
Yeah. So Google's got some problems. They've lost even worse to Epic, if you can imagine that. And they've lost in search, and now they've lost in ads. And the ads trial, the ads case, the antitrust case, that will have a similar remedy hearing to what we're seeing now with search, but that's happening in September. So in both cases, some months will go by after that. And then the judge will issue a final decision. Right. And I don't think it's going to be pretty.
No,
so we'll see.
And then the next round will start.
Yeah. Yep. Or if these companies are smart, there'll be a consent decree that both sides agree to, and they bring it to the judge.
It took Ballmer over a year to negotiate that consent decree. It was pernicious monopoly in December of '99, and consent decree was November of 2000. Like it
was
took.
Was that okay? Yeah, I remember
it took a year.
Yep. Yeah. So, but
one would argue that was why the C# specification was public as an ECMA specification. Like a lot of behavior that Microsoft was doing at that time was signals to this is why the consent decree will work. Yep.
And honestly, it was stuff that I don't think anyone cared about, this notion of like, we can put any language into .NET because, we're all using PL1.NET now and COBOL.NET or whatever.
22 languages, one platform. That was the pitch.
Yeah.
And
now it's one language, one platform for pretty much everybody, right? I mean,
well, and a couple of thousand F# people are happily in the corner doing their own.
Yep. And a couple of disgruntled VB guys we're still here. Shut up. No, you're not.
COBOL.NET still maintained.
No, I'm sure.
Fortran.net still maintained. Like, really.
All right.
For certain niches,
Okay. I'm not going anywhere until they make assembly language.net, and then we can talk.
Well, there is managed C++, but nobody uses that either. So
no, goddamn.
All right.
So there's no reason to beat to death a lot of the earnings that have occurred since then, but let's just say that Apple made a buttload of money and incredible growth in services, and I would keep my eye on that one. That one might be going down.
Yeah, 10%.
We'll see. This is the first quarter that Amazon Web Services made less in revenues than Intelligent Cloud, which is the part of Microsoft that hosts Azure.
Right.
So that happened. Qualcomm's doing great. AMD's doing great. AMD, most of their money now comes from data center. They had unbelievable growth, 36% in revenues, but 476 in profits.
Wow.
476%, I should say.
That just means they're selling more chips of the same design, so their margins get improving for that. I think I called that one at the beginning of the year where it's like, I don't know if I could buy Intel right now on a 5-year warranty. I think I wouldn't buy AMD.
I wouldn't touch anything Intel makes.
It's a tough time, for anything long haul.
AMD's client business, which is PCs, the revenues in that business are up 68%. Now, relatively speaking, compared to Intel chips, obviously they're the minority player here, but that's amazing and well-deserved. Like those latest Zen 5 chips are amazing. Good for them.
I think that's probably the new machine, since you keep reminding me I'm not going to get a Qualcomm.
Yep, that would be the one. You're going to love this thing. Even like just gaming off of the internal, they don't call it this, but the integrated graphics, they have a different term. It's integrated graphics. Like awesome. It's awesome. Like it's crazy.
I'm going to put a big hunkin' video card in there anyway, but
So because of the timing, I was flying home last week and they announced revenue or their quarterly earnings while we were doing a show. I usually do a big analysis piece, but the one thing I want to point out for this quarter was going into the after earnings call, which I listen to live. I don't always do that. I always read the transcript after the fact, but this time I actually listened because that's when I had the time. There were reports that Microsoft's, actually it's a fact, I should say, they spent less on AI infrastructure in that quarter than they did in the quarter a year ago. It's the first time it's declined in, I think it was 10 quarters in a row, something like that. So I was like, okay, it's finally happening. And we heard the reports about Microsoft had these initial agreements to, acquire capacity and kind of walked away from it. So something's happening. But during the call, they could not have been clearer. That is not happening. And they said, nope, you can expect it to go up again in the coming quarter, this current quarter, and it will keep going up. We have not taken our foot off this pedal. We cannot meet the demand that we have. There's different kinds of spending.
They need data centers regardless of whether it's AI workload or not. And yet they have backed away from a few of them. It makes me wonder if they think they've got better deals elsewhere, so they don't need to sign them all.
I think there's
a little bit of a land grab there.
I think it might be OpenAI is a big chunk of it. I mean, there were these stories that have been coming out where OpenAI supposedly has gone to Microsoft and said, okay, we need this. And they're like, yeah, we're not doing that.
Yeah, we're not doing that. And that's where the Stargate thing came from. And now there seems to be more of that. And I've also just seen the piece where OpenAI wants to restructure the deal now and put them into the regular share pool rather than the shared revenue model, which you could see that relationship is evolving, which also makes sense.
It's like you're getting a divorce and your relationship is evolving. Your relationship is evolving. It's moving into a new phase.
Well, you saw that OpenAI has decided not to go for the
so that's actually the next right. So there is now a theory that Microsoft might have been the one that put the stop to this. They mentioned not specifically. They vaguely mentioned OpenAI that they had. I got to get the term right because it's crazy how they said this. Civic leaders have expressed concern. I don't know what civic leaders. What are you talking about?
Civic leaders. The mayor? Are they talking about the mayor?
We heard from civic leaders. Yeah, exactly. It was the guy who runs the local OpenAI user group. He was like, I don't know. I don't like the sound of this.
Maybe they're talking about the administration.
I don't know. I have no idea. But they also mentioned, oddly, having discussions with the offices of the attorneys general of California and Delaware. Why would they say that? Well, it turns out that there is a big group of employees inside of OpenAI that has been opposing them going into become a for-profit company. And they reported the company to those attorneys generals to try to prevent it. So
Delaware, where they're incorporated, also was not real excited about the prospect.
Yeah, so this is not going to happen now. So it's still going to change in a way, right? So there's still the parent company that is this nonprofit foundation, which, by the way, is a little bit like Mozilla, except they make a lot of money. And then they have this for-profit subsidiary, right, which we think of as OpenAI. Stan Altman in a letter
it's going to be a public benefit corporation now, right?
Yeah. So he said, this is a very Google statement. OpenAI is not a normal company and never will be. Right.
Well, that's true.
That is the first thing you've said where I'm like, yeah, 100%. I agree with you. But he's talking now the way OpenAI used to talk, which is like, our goal is to create artificial general intelligence, AGI, that will benefit all of humanity. We're committed to this path. Like we're still this is the best way forward. And it's like,
and it's what it was formed for in the first place.
Right.
But this is not how he's been talking for the past year or so, right?
No.
Like this guy has been very clear. Like for us to do what we want, we have to be unfettered and whatever,
and what he wanted to do was raise a lot of money, and it's easier to raise money with a with a business architecture that people understand.
That's right.
And now that it doesn't matter because he's raised a lot of money.
That's the thing. And I think they've raised a lot of money and I bet will continue to raise money. I think people pretty much get it. Like, no, you guys are going gangbusters. It's fine.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I don't need the restructuring to raise money because I've already raised money.
Yeah, right. So I think OpenAI is the weirdest company. I used to think when Google first,
This only gets ugly when it goes wrong. Like that's when it's going to get
this ends badly. There's no doubt about it. But one of the things that came out of the past 2 weeks leading up to this was this notion that Microsoft had the power as part of their partnership agreement to nix this deal. Like if OpenAI said, yep, we're going to do it. We're going to be for profit. Microsoft could say, nope, no, you're not. And they could have stopped it. And I wonder now if Microsoft didn't play a role. That's something they wouldn't have said publicly, right? Because that would make the relationship look bad. Those two companies are very dependent on each other, obviously. And
I would imagine they come to the table with a deal. Like, here's what we want if we do this.
Yeah.
Right. And the fact that there was some kind of motion there to put them into normal shares rather than ownership makes sense because you just want to levelize the structure of the company. But they might even do a preferred share option. There's a bunch of ways to do this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this entity was formed to yank all those AI scientists out of Google, under the guise of it'll be better for the world.
It's better for humanity. Yeah.
Right. Which is all sus to me with a bunch of tech billionaires say this is what's better for the world.
Yep. No, 100%.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is like people say about the weather everywhere. If you don't like it, just wait 50 minutes. It's going to change. Like if you don't like OpenAI's corporate structure, don't worry. Just wait 50 minutes. It's going to change again. Like I think we're going to be going through this kind of thing for a while. And I feel like for Satya Nadella, the way that my reaction to the Skype ringtone is his reaction to OpenAI now. He's like, it's triggering. It's like I don't think you understand what it was like for me to bet this entire company on this thing and have you guys
the
do
week that I publicly
you
said I'm betting the company.
Yep. Thanks. You waited till that and then did what it's like,
without calling me first. Like,
we're going to end you. Yeah. So I keep saying this, but I think the Microsoft OpenAI thing ends badly. I think OpenAI might end badly either way.
I disagree because they're missing the actual key asset, which is compute.
Having a human soul. Oh no, I'm sorry, Richard. Yes. The key asset.
I think it's also important to recognize that Microsoft's no longer the same company. Like they're not a microcomputer software company anymore. They're a computing utility company with much lower margins. Like that, they don't make money the way they used to make money.
That's right.
They make money selling compute resources, and I don't know that half the company's clued into that, much less the rest of the world.
Yeah, they're almost like a licensing tech / capacity licensing company. Maybe is the way to put it. Like they have enormous revenues coming in every month. Technically, they could be volatile, right? Like planning out more than 6 to 9 months might be difficult for them at this point because they when they moved to Office 365 and before then actually to Windows licenses for businesses, the goal was we used to do this up and down thing. Let's kind of smooth that out, and they got there. And then of course now they're going up, but I feel like a lot of this stuff is a little more volatile. Potentially. So,
well, in the part there is that scale provides stability, right? That
yes, yeah, that's right.
Right. I also noticed in those, getting back to the corporate report, they still did 10 billion in buybacks.
Yes,
like the old company's still in there. They keep saying they're all in on AI. It's like, okay, you're mostly in on AI.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. They look. There's no reason for them to give up or whatever these traditional money makers they have. Windows OEM licensing is still a bunch of money.
It's still billions.
Yep. Microsoft 365, the part that is, you're selling productivity services to businesses that are rolling out the Fortune 500.
Arguably the largest SaaS product in the world.
Yep. Big money. You don't like to talk about server, it's in the same, it's sort of Azure. It's like Azure, but not quite Azure. They don't like to talk about it. I get that too, but this stuff is still, it's big. It's like when you look at Google and you're like, all right, let's pretend this is never going to happen, but we're going to strip away all the money they make from ads. Not possible. It's not going to happen, but let's say they did. The company that's left over is much smaller, but it's still tens of billions of dollars a quarter. It's a big company. Microsoft, the part of Microsoft that's not directly tied to, I'm going to call it Azure/AI, is pretty freaking big. It's a lot bigger than that part of Google, that's for sure.
But I do think there's this shift, the thing that's compelling about the software business is the 90% margin. Right? It's just the incremental cost is so small. And that, the one thing you cannot see in that public report in any way is the marginal cost of Azure.
Right, because that would, please. If there was a version of history where 1 month, one quarter, I guess, Microsoft said, here are the hard numbers on Azure, we would be able to figure out where they are now. If you look at a company like Apple, you can't get it exact, but Apple used to report the exact number of devices that they sold every quarter. So you can kind of extrapolate a little bit. There's some guesswork involved because the average selling price per whatever number of iPhones they sell now is, it could be all over the map. We don't know exactly, but you can look at the channel. You can talk to different companies and get a rough idea of the mix of phones and say, okay, the average selling price has gone up a couple of bucks or down a couple of bucks. And that means compared to, say, 10 years ago, they're selling whatever it is, 75% more iPhones or something. Like you can actually kind of do that math. It's not 100% accurate, never is. But I mean, Microsoft.
No, but it's also, it speaks to the fact that Apple's largely a one product company.
No, yes. But I mean, I guess, but what I mean, yes, but they literally are. But what I mean by that is in Microsoft's case, there was never a quarter where they said, okay, it costs us this much to roll out the Azure infrastructure. We made this much in profit, this much in revenue, whatever. Our CapEx is this and blah, blah. They never spelled it out one time. So we can't even extrapolate. So when they say something like Azure revenues are up 31% in the quarter, we're like, yay, from what?
Compared to what?
We're not really talking about that.
Apparently they're beating AWS now. Yay.
Yeah.
But again, with no baseline and no real cost centers. And they have them. They're just not required to report them to their shareholders.
I wonder about that. I feel like they're Microsoft and everyone else in big tech, and a lot of companies probably too. I just follow this one market. Have specifically been rolling back what they divulge every quarter to see what they can get away with. It turns out they can get away with anything because they don't provide almost any hard numbers. If you look at an Amazon earnings announcement, it's a 30,000 word report about all the new products they shipped that quarter, whether they're a new type of DVD case or a doll that they're selling or some stupid, whatever. It's like this range of nonsense. And you're like, okay, but how's the ad business doing? Or, well, actually that number they do give you, but it's hard to understand where the money's coming from. Plus Amazon's business is extremely volatile. Most of their money comes from retail
and very tight margins, right?
Yep. And sometimes they don't make any money.
Exploited.
Sometimes they do. I mean, profit, but sometimes it's pretty high. And you're like, well, why is it higher?
But all of these corporate reports, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Apple, and so forth, they always have that element of look over here, look over here, look over here. Like you're trying to distract,
like a magician doing a trick where there's a puff of smoke and server is running over into the corner because don't look at me. Don't look at me. I didn't make any money.
Don't look behind that curtain. That's not a thing.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. I think you managed to get me ranty today, Paul. I'm impressed.
Good job, Paul.
Yeah.
I love pulling people down to my level. It's no, I'm sorry, Rich.
That was fine. This has been eating at me for a while. It's like this company is becoming completely transformed, and I don't know that it's even admitting it. It's certainly not showing in its reporting.
Yes. So I don't go to like a therapist or whatever, but I sort of imagine like I've been
Paul, maybe you should consider it.
Yeah, no, I've been told that. But if I did, I mean, a big part of if I was doing this, like one of the little traumas in my life is trying to understand, like when Microsoft shifted from being this company that made stuff I really cared about to making stuff I don't care about at all, right? And Steven Sinofsky approaches this in his book a little bit. He talks about when Office shifted from being about people to being about companies and how horrible that was for him. He's like, I want to do all these things, benefit people. Burke might need to be stopped. I'm just saying. Burke might literally be an AI at this point. I don't know what's happening. I think he's HAL 9000ing us or something. So that will make sense to anybody listening to this later. But Microsoft turned it into this company serving businesses. That was a shift. They've done this stuff in consumer that's never taken off. Licenses and then cloud was one of the. I was like, cloud. I'm like, really? I mean, like, who cares? And then AI. At least there's an element to AI where this is going to benefit people in the sense that it will be added to productivity tools, and I can kind of see this, But yeah, this has been like I'm trying to understand the company. It's so many years later. It's like, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. Like, what is this company? Like, which is sort of what you just said. It's like, you wake up one day and you're like, you
guys aren't the same guys.
Or people will ask me, like, people
Your
just
name is incorrect.
Like, what do you do? I'm like a writer, blah, blah, blah. What do you write about? Well, technology, primarily Microsoft. And like, Microsoft? Like, those guys are still around? And I'm like, yeah, they're the second biggest company in the world.
First.
But but that's like saying, that's what we would have said about IBM back in the day. It's like I've heard of this company. Like, I guess I vaguely understand they're behind some computing thing that's occurring out in the world, but they don't understand it,
You should say, I read about Windows. People would say, oh, yeah.
And they say the same
get
thing.
that.
They're still around. I mean, yeah, I know. You're using a MacBook. I get it. But some of us still use Windows. I mean, by choice, or does your company make you? Is that why? It's like, no.
Oh, the discussions you must have.
Oh, it's the worst. I want to be so bad. Someday I'm going to be like, I'm a writer. It's like, what do you write? I'm like, I write books like Stephen King, kind of.
Yeah.
Like they're
horror novels about.
It's mostly horror. Yeah, horror stories about bad things happening to good people. Yeah, that's pretty much Windows user base. Yeah.
Okay.
It's very similar to Stephen King.
Yeah.
I think you already did the first AI topic because we've definitely hammered on OpenAI today.
How about Google's little language lessons, whatever those are?
Yeah, did you see this? This is cute.
No.
So this is an experiment. This is some engineers inside of Google. Google went to their company, just like Microsoft did, and said, hey, this is happening. What can we do with this? And this group of engineers just created prompts in Gemini to do little language lessons. It's not like a replacement for Duolingo or Rosetta Stone or anything like that. Not yet, but it's a fun little web page. You should check this out if you haven't. It's really cool. And they just have little, they're not completely random per se, but basically random lessons. You can pick little topics and it just does little bite-sized like language lessons. There's like 3 or 4 different types of lessons.
They want me
and
to
it's,
log in.
It's like kind of a fun little presentation. It's nice.
I'm not going to log in. I'll go in the other.
Yeah, it's just, it's a nice, it's worth looking at.
And did we see that Duolingo has been using AI to make their lesson plans now, and like the amount of
they say
material
they're
suddenly exploded?
Yeah, everybody was so pissed off when they said this. We're getting rid of all the contractors who used to design our lessons.
Oh no, we're not getting rid of you guys. No, not yet. I mean, we're talking about the contractors. You guys are fine. I mean, work hard, by the way, but you're fine.
Yeah,
but yeah, the story with Duolingo was something to the tune of it took us 10 to 12 years, I don't remember the number, to
do
get
like
to our first 150 languages. And then we'd used AI, not languages, lessons. Yeah. And then we used AI and it happened in 8 weeks or whatever the time frame was.
We made
really
another
short.
300 or something. Like
let's do Mexican. This would be helpful to you.
Do Mexican. That's, don't look for Mexican in that list because that's not a language.
Latin American Spanish, pardon me.
Yes.
And then you are in Mexico. So let's generate some slang. See if Paul recognizes.
It says tomalo, which means take it, which is like suck it.
Suck it. 2 strangers, Mariana and Javier, find themselves stuck in a broken down cable car high above the city of Guanajuato.
Specific scenario.
Mariana, a local artist, is calm, while Javier, a tourist from Guadalajara, is visibly nervous. They've been waiting for rescue for over an hour.
Coladas.
She says, Would you like a pina colada? No, she
No
says.
manches,
Exactly.
Mariana, ¿cuánto más vamos a estar aquí colgados?
So, what are we supposed to do now? No hablo español.
Oh, hit the space bar. I think it's going to continue.
Okay, more.
Tantito. Yeah, man.
Calme tantito. Is that that's a slang phrase?
Well, anything with ito on the end is small, so it's like I
Calme
actually don't know what
tantito.
tantar probably.
Calm-
Ay, Javier, cálmate tantito. Ya
Just
mero
calm
llegan,
down.
seguro. Mira,
Calm down a
mejor
little
admira
bit.
la vista.
I read your mother's book, and
And I still use Windows Vista.
I still use Windows Vista.
You
still
admire
use-
Windows Vista?
Admirar
What
la vista.
about what
Estoy a
about
punto de
Project?
tener
What was
un
it called?
ataque. ¿Qué tal si
Project.
se rompe esto?
What's the thing?
So this is AI generated?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, they
pretty
actually. So if you
cool.
go, they have a blog where they actually show the exact prompts they use to create this.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm impressed.
which is the cool part. I
Yeah.
think.
I'm impressed. That's really neat.
Yeah,
That was the
It's a fun-
slang
it's a
hang.
neat
They have
little-
others.
yeah.
They have various.
This is not,
lessons.
this is not like a world changing something, but it's kind of a cool example of like how this kind of, generative AI could be used. And like I said, like there are blog posts that they've created that explain like how they made this, which I think is the cool bit, right?
European French for taking a taxi.
I like there is a different, I guess it could be Canadian French.
Yeah, that had Canadian as well.
Québécois.
Bonjour, vous êtes libre? Combien coûte la course jusqu'à le Panthéon? Pouvez-vous... Oh, this is good. Gardez la monnaie. You know what that means?
I know it's not what I know what it sounds like.
Gardez la monnaie. Watch your money.
Spanish has the same word, like guardar is like, it
Yeah.
means to protect or
Keep
keep
an
or
eye
whatever.
out. Yeah,
but-
yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
But it sounds like you're putting it in a vault.
This is great. This is fun.
Yeah.
You've got
Covered.
vocabulary, you've got phrases, you've got some tips.
Yeah.
Using vouloir to make polite requests. When taking a taxi, being polite is always a good idea.
You know what the difference between French and Spanish really is? It's in French, everything is formal by default. If you don't know
Right.
someone is formal.
Right.
At least in Mexico, in Spanish, it's always like the to form of the verb. It's like
Right.
we're going to be very familiar right away.
Yeah, isn't that-
everything.
that's actually a whole cultural
Yeah, no, it's
difference.
that
right
is
there,
the primary
in a
difference
nutshell.
right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Well, that's cool. Tiny language done with AI. It does validate what the Duolingo guy was saying, right? It's like you don't need.
No, I think it's cool. It looks like a cool little site. I guess this was mentioned in the post-earnings conference call, but GitHub put up a post about it. They now have 15 million users of GitHub Copilot, thanks to 4x year-over-year growth. And then they talk about all the stuff. The code review feature has already handled over 8 million GitHub pull requests. And this is the thing that's like that Cursor AI editor, right? So this is built into Visual Studio Code. It's not yet built into Visual Studio proper, but you can open your thing there. I mean, GitHub Copilot is built in. You can use it right inside Visual Studio. But if you want that full, solution code review, which by the way is a blisteringly abusive, like look at your, like it's especially for me.
Did you
It's like,
really mean
like
to
you can
write
see it
that
shaking
way?
its head. It's like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's just as it goes down. It's like, no. Oh, no. It's bad.
I don't know what you were thinking here.
Yep. I spent much of the past week with my own app moving stuff into a class, like a C# class, to isolate it from the rest of the app. Whew. Let me tell you, this is like file operations, right? So there are terms that I have not heard in 20 years that have come up in this conversation with AI, not with AI, with the debugger, because the errors I get. It's like they talk about STA threading and
Nice.
how you can't like change the UI from another thread. And it's like, what are you talking about? I'm not trying to do that. I mean, what do you mean? Like, this has never come up. I've been doing WPF now for a long time. And I'm like, I am taking your advice and now you're telling me that I'm not doing it right. It's like a double whammy, It's brutal.
Paul. Again with the STA3 threading.
STA threading. What are you talking about?
I swear.
Don't
Paul.
actually tell me what you're talking about. I've looked it up and I know what it is, but I just don't care. It's brutal. It's brutal. No, I know what it is, but it's like, what the fuck? Like,
I don't want to talk about that.
Put it there. Like and I just tumble out. That's all I say back to it now.
So what'd you write in the prompt for the re-architecture? Hey, can you aggravate me with my new software architecture?
Right. I would like this to be as time consuming and aggravating as possible. It just like, oh, no problem. Your code is terrible. That's going to be easy.
It's going to be simple.
Yeah. I was already going there. You didn't even have to say that.
Nice.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's
pretty funny, I have to say.
It will probably make it better. I don't know. Or I'll just give up. I don't know.
So much better.
I'm going to just start doing like command line apps now. I can't stand this anymore. It's ridiculous.
I've been using Claude Code. I told you that last week on the command line. I love it. It's amazing.
No, that stuff is all great. These tools are amazing. And, I think this is the eye-opening thing for me because, like I said a week or two ago, whenever it was, like I don't literally ever use it for writing or for my main work or whatever. But I see what it can do in the coding, and it's impressive. I mean, we need this oversight. I don't know what to call it. I mean, it's brutal, but I'm
asking it to look at some code I wrote and say, give me some suggestions for improvement.
Did a child write this? What is this?
I think Claude's pretty friendly, but maybe not. I don't know. Eliminate redundant calculations. Use a hash table instead of lists.
Yep.
Memoize the loop function. Optimize the equal test.
I love use a hash table.
Yeah, use a hash
Idiot.
table. Idiot, dummy. Avoid repeated map copying by using a change restore approach. Actually, this is good. The biggest improvement, Leo, would come from a more algorithmic approach that avoids testing each position individually.
Oh, wow.
Well, okay.
There you go.
This is good advice. You could learn a lot. I mean, honestly, if
you really can. This is incredible.
If your feelings didn't get hurt, you could learn a lot.
Yep. Well, yeah. I mean, in my case, what happens is I spend days converting like file operations, in this case, to a class that is completely isolated from the rest of the application. You have to pass things back and forth. And then you're like, all right, it's working, I guess. Reanalyze. It's like, man, you're passing a lot of stuff between classes here. And I'm like, dude, you told me to do this. Like, what the, like, seriously, what would make you
it doesn't have
happy?
much of a memory. I do notice that. Like, it can tell you to do stuff and then say that was a bad idea.
It's like, do you really have to pass that thing? Yeah, I do, because it's...
You said so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to ask you, it's going to suggest you flatten it all out now.
Yes. You know, here's what we recommend. Yeah, put everything in one class. Oh, Mm-hmm. Oh, you mean the thing I had 4 years ago? Yeah, no,
in what you're doing
sounds good.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. So glad to have you. Paul Thurrott here from Thurrott.com. Richard Campbell from RunIsRadio.com. And you know what you've been waiting for. I know what you've been waiting for. Everybody's been waiting for the Xbox segment. Thank God Paul Thurrott is here with our Xbox segment.
Right. Yep. So this story just happened right before we started the show. Now there's more information on. So the only article I could find about it was from Reuters. It was 2 sentences, but now it's bigger. So I believe that I don't want to read this in real time, but the way I took this was a federal appeal court on Wednesday rejected a legal challenge by the FTC to Microsoft's purchase of Activision Blizzard. It upheld a lower court ruling from actually it might have been from 2023, from a while ago. So I believe this is probably the end of this, right? So the FTC, despite being slapped down repeatedly, right, when they were trying to prevent this from happening, in an unprecedented move, decided to move forward with trying to prevent this acquisition from occurring, even though it had already occurred. I believe, I don't want to say, but I believe this is, this might be the end of it, I hope. But this newer, longer version of the article says that the the FTC was unlikely to succeed on its claims that a merger would restrict competition. In fact, I don't have this in the notes. We didn't write about this, but the top 3 downloaded games on the Sony PlayStation last month were all Microsoft-owned games. So
the spokesperson for the FTC stomped off without saying a word.
Wait, does this say no? Oh, that would be amazing. Yeah. Lisa Khan slowly or quietly stewed in the corner.
I think this sounds like it's over. Yes.
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It also makes you wonder if this is what was holding Microsoft back from really doing much with Activision Blizzard, and like until this is resolved.
Yeah. Now the anti-competitive behavior can begin.
I refuse to give this company that credit. I mean, maybe. I'd like to believe that, but I don't know. That would be nice if that was true. I don't know. Anyway, all right. So that's good.
Yep.
So let me just catch up here with my notes. Where am I? Here we go. Okay. So a bunch of stuff. So I can't remember if this was a leak or I believe it was a leak, but Microsoft is working with Asus to put out the first Xbox branded gaming handheld this year sometime. But now we've seen leaks of the images of this device because it has to clear FCC. FCC what? Regulatory, what's the term I'm looking for here? I don't know. For, emitting radio waves.
Emissions restrictions. Like it's got to.
So, and oftentimes we get these leaks, right? And so it looks like what you think it looks like a Switch or Steam Deck style, single, whatever.
PlayStation Portable defined this form factor 15 years ago.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. So, just bigger, but yes, exactly right. So, the question here, of course, is whether this thing is literally Windows, which is the most likely. But Phil Spencer has talked about how Xbox, the OS, is built on top of Windows, and we're trying to work through this, right? Like there may be this version of the future where Xbox and Windows are basically the same, the games are the same, and they run the that kind of thing. So we'll see. So assuming this comes out in time for the holidays, which by the way, it will, as it's going through the FCC. We're going to learn more about this soon. So
if they're doing FCC in April, then they're trying to get ready for October.
This will be in time for the holidays, I would say. So it doesn't look great. I mean, it looks like these things all kind of look the
like
same,
another one.
Yeah.
But I like the kind of the game, like the Nintendo-y kind of side handles.
It's like an Xbox controller you cut in half with an axe, through like an 8 or 9 inch screen, whatever that is, and then slapped it back on. Like, by the way, I know Lena Khan. I'm sorry, I said Lisa Khan probably left the FCC. Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, she's gone. You don't have to tell him
but
that.
doesn't mean she couldn't be in the courtroom crying. It was a joke. Relax. Anyway, as far as this goes, this part of the market is clearly done well enough that Microsoft's like, okay, we got to do something. There have been calls for an Xbox portable gaming something for ever since.
So they would call this an Xbox probably, huh?
Well, this is the question, right? Like
this was the ad.
It's not an ROG.
Everything's an Xbox.
Yeah.
So
Xbox,
Xbox, yes, but what does that mean? Is it really a Windows PC? We'll see. Either way,
36 watt TDPs. It's can't have the greatest battery life. I mean,
yep.
Holy cow.
It's portable, but you need it plugged in.
Yeah, maybe that's it, right?
I mean, we're getting back to the Dave Cutler-esque mindset of Windows kernel.
Yeah.
Because the Xbox is definitely Windows kernel with a different UI on it. So this might be a different UI.
Yeah, stripped down. They've been talking about adapting the Xbox app on Windows to be the UI. They want it to be a front end for all the other stores you might use, right? Like Epic Games and Steam and so forth. And okay, that's cool. And that's, by the way, that says PC to me. But I think we're going to see a lot of these. Like, I think this is interesting. I think this is kind of interesting. I do think the key to this is going to be getting Windows to the point where it makes sense on this kind of device. Like, the Steam Deck went with Linux for all kinds of reasons, but one of the good reasons is it takes up a lot fewer resources and, it's more efficient to run on this kind of a low end device. I feel like Windows could get there, but this is that argument, like when Apple was making the iPhone or Windows was doing Windows Mobile and big Windows. And it's like, so Are you going to take something big and strip stuff off and make something small? Or are you going to take something small and build it out to be something more sophisticated? At what point do you strip away from Windows and it just becomes an Xbox? I mean, if the Xbox OS today or a console is essentially Windows, it's really like what I would call Hyper-V and a very simplified model for switching between open apps or whatever, not too many. Where do we land on this? I don't know, but I'd like to see, this is obviously like I shouldn't say obviously. Yeah, no, it is. It is an x64 machine, right? So that's fine. That's what you need today. This is what works, but September's going to come around. Snapdragon's going to come out with G2.
How do you build this not ARM?
That because it's not ready right now. That's the problem. Because the lead time on this stuff is like a year, right? So,
but Asus is about to get crucified. They're going to get this out the door just in time.
Yeah. Then there's 36 watts, and then they're going to say, here's a 5-watt version.
Yeah, but what does it run? The Snapdragon stuff has to run these games. There's also this thing hiding in the corner, which is NVIDIA or maybe NVIDIA plus MediaTek, where those guys enter the ARM market and have their graphics thing. And maybe that is going to be more suitable for this kind of a device for all the obvious reasons, right? And so we'll see. But I bet Microsoft is waiting to put their name on a device for that. And I think this is tied into the next gen Xbox stuff. So in the meantime, this still looks pretty interesting. I mean, I'm glad they're going with AMD, by the way.
That's something at least. But yeah, this is just a timing issue. Boy, oh boy, there's a strong incentive not to buy the first version of this product.
I know. Which stinks because you want it to do well. And then, you know what I mean? You want it to keep going.
Hate that you've trapped your vendor too. I
know. But God bless them for even trying.
But there's a larger argument here, Paul, that Phil Spector for jumping on. It's like, you should be making a new Xbox and it should be an ARM device.
Yeah, 100%. But again, I think we're waiting. This is the, when Microsoft came up with these Surface devices and people like, oh, what about Intel and AMD? And it's like, yeah, what about them? I mean, that part of the market is well served by Snapdragon right now.
Yeah.
The gaming part of the market is not. And a lot of things have to change. They've done work that they can do, given what they have. I think the Auto SR stuff is pretty amazing, frankly. And the emulation stuff's pretty good, given completely different architectures. The fact that anything works is kind of amazing. GPU needs to get better, like we said, but we also need to get games onto this platform. And one of the ways we can do that collectively is for Microsoft to embrace it as the platform for Xbox, right?
Yep.
And so we'll see. Again, we're kind of in a holding pattern here. But I keep coming back to this. There's no way. There's
a ton of game developers working on ARM. They're called mobile developers.
There you go. So this is right. This will come up at the end of the show, but I play a lot of Call of Duty, right? But I play a lot of Call of Duty mobile, and that experience has all the mobile garbage, right? There's a lot of the in-game. We want you to buy chests and do all that crap. And it's just like, it's bloated with stuff.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But the gameplay,
free to play, pay to win, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's some of that, but it's the best levels that have ever existed for Call of Duty. So they're well understood. They're beautiful, and if you have like a high res, like an iPad or something, it's gorgeous looking. The sound is amazing. If you're using an Xbox controller, which is what I would use, or whatever controller, there are moments where you're like, this is like on the PC. Like, I mean, it's so close. And, mobile games aren't Flappy Bird and Angry Birds anymore, right? I mean, they are, but there can be very sophisticated games. And they're not always just like...
Mostly sophisticated taking money off you, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, Apple's done a small job or some job trying to bring games down to their mobile devices where you get like what is essentially probably the Mac version of Resident Evil 7 or whatever version it is. And it runs on your iPad and it looks like the Mac version. You're like, wow, this is pretty impressive. And yeah, that's cool. But the thing about Call of Duty Mobile that's interesting to me is that's a brand new game. Like that was created for mobile, and it is a Warzone version as well. Like it's actually kind of awesome, and it shows the way, at least graphically and play wise, that mobile could do it. So ARM could do it, no doubt about it.
Now they could. Excuse me. They've made new hardware before, right? Like this is not a weird thing in the industry. If you actually wanted to make Xbox interesting again, you would go with the best chips that you lay your hands on.
Yeah. And if you want to make it uninteresting again, what you could do is stick with the same crap and then raise the price. And that's what they just did, sadly. Now, this isn't their fault necessarily. I mean, this is the tariff stuff kicking in, I guess, at some point. But we have this hardware business that has not been doing well. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but past several years, pretty much consistently making less money, less revenues. They've never really been profitable quarter over quarter, well, year over year, every quarter. And, in the United States, depending on the system, like some of these are really expensive, like a lot more expensive than they were. Depending on, like I said, depending on the unit, depending on the exact model, anywhere from like $50 to a couple $100 more expensive. Like
6 months ago, they were cheaper. Yeah.
Yep. It's like yikes. And honestly, this was somewhat telegraphed. I feel like we all knew this was coming.
Yeah.
But we've gotten to the point now where like this will have to change. It will change. But for now, we're in this weird time where like some PS5 models are less expensive than the roughly equivalent Xbox, whatever. And it's like, oh, that's not good. Like it's, so, I mean, it will change. Sony's probably gonna have to raise their prices too, but that's too bad.
Likely. And always the question is how much of this is tariffing and how much of it is new hardware costs, and supply issues or just profit opportunity. Yeah.
I would like to think at this point, I can't even almost get this sentence out, but like I'd like to think that Microsoft is not profiteering off of this notion of people sort of understand the prices are going to go up, and so we might as well just
now is the opportunity to slide that through.
Because it's not like these things were going gangbusters before. They didn't sell great during the holidays, so like what raising the prices isn't going to help. It's like, oh, these things must be really good. They're like twice as expensive now. And like that's not how people think. Like this is in our community sadly is so negative now and so distraught by everything. It's like, okay, well, I'm just going to buy a gaming PC now. It's like, yeah, because the prices of those aren't going to go up. You're going to be fine. Like, come on, dude. Like, this is not, it's going to impact everything. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who knows? Maybe these things revert. That's the problem. How do you lower prices at some point 6 months from now when you've raised prices, or do you leave them where they are?
Well, you see a lot of price decreases as inflation came down. Not so much.
Maybe my memory is wrong. In fact, I'm positive it is. But if you go back to 2005 when the 360 launched, like what was the average selling price of a game? Like when did games become $59.99? Right?
A while ago.
A long time ago. So somewhere a year ago, 2 years ago max, somewhere a year, 18 months, whatever it was, we started talking about these $69.99 games, So now we're talking about $79.99 games for this coming holiday season. Not all of them, but some of the bigger, better.
Yeah, your big titles are going to be $80.
And it's hard to look at that and be like, come on, are you kidding me? Because in that case, you can make a really good argument that what they really want you to do is get on Game Pass, because that's the model that they want. And that's what benefits them the most, because it's good, solid income over a long period of time. And one of the ways you can get people there is to make the physical media, or I guess we'll call it standalone game, the on-prem version of the game, I guess, more expensive, even though why? I don't know. Anyway, there's that. So that's bad. In the good news department, it's May. We have a new month. So we've got a new set of games. There's a bunch of them. It's like 10 or 12 of them coming in the first half of the month. The big one being the one we already knew about, which is the new Doom, right? So Doom, what's it called? The Dark Ages is arriving across everything on May 15th. So next week, yay. Yeah. Finally have something that's not Call of Duty to play. So I'm looking forward to that one. It's going to be Game Pass, PC, Xbox Series X and S. and you'll be able to stream it over cloud streaming if you have Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. So that's good. And then there's a bunch of other stuff, and I find myself in a very familiar position looking through this list like,
Who cares?
Don't know what any of these are. A lot of them. Okay. This one sort of came out of the blue, but not really. But Microsoft is remaking Gears of War again. This is the second time they've done this. This is a game that launched on the 360 a million years ago. When I want to say the first version of this game, I bet it was 1280 by 720, something like that. And it looks
This is a remastering.
yeah, so it looked great. And then when they did that, there was a brief push around Vista for what we now call Xbox, but was games for Windows Vista or something, or what is it called? Windows Live Games or whatever the heck it was. Basically Xbox on Windows. And at that time, they remastered Gears of War to run on the PC, and they went up to 1080p, and then they put that back on the console. It was the same thing. So it was like probably 30 frames a second, 1080p kind of thing. So now they're remastering it again, and this time they're bringing it everywhere because that's what we do now. So it's Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, PC, and Game Pass. Coming out in August, will support cross-play, cross-progression, all that stuff. But the big thing is the graphics, right? So depending on the system, up to 4K, 120 frames per second in multiplayer, which is astonishing. Like, that's crazy. So we'll see. Multiplayer OG Gears is not great, honestly. It's like running around with a loaded diaper, but some people like that. I don't know. It's a great game. And this is, this is sort of like, I'm trying to think what other games are like this. Like Halo is like this. Gears of War, yes, especially the first two, maybe three, where it's just like replayable. Like every once in a while you go back. It's like the original Star Wars movies. Like every once in a while you're like, yeah, I'm just going to watch these all again. And every time you do, you're like, yep, like this. Yeah, no, I remember why this was so awesome. You don't have that moment where you're like, oh, this isn't that good. Like, no, Gears of War is great. Like especially the first two, especially I would say, are just fantastic. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to this. I'd like to see them do, like, on Halo, we have the Master Chief Collection, and we're talking, by the way, about doing a Halo remaster as well, where they will put it out across platform. But before that, and now what we have is the Master Chief Collection. That's an amazing collection of games, Xbox and PC, and same thing. They better assets, faster graphics, etc. I'd love to see them do that for I'm not sure which Gears games exactly, but at least the original trilogy would be kind of amazing. So really cool. That's good. And then we'll get into a weird spot where more people are playing Gears on PlayStation. It's okay. Okay, what are we? And then in the bad news department, we're kind of going back and forth. Mojang announced that it's going to remove support for VR headsets from Minecraft Bedrock Edition. Starting in October. So I guess it supports, it's VR MR. MR is mixed reality. Mixed reality is the Windows platform, right? So
yeah, the inexpensive goggles. So
yeah,
I mean, I'm surprised they don't maintaining support for Quest, because that's still made. Microsoft's dropped all the MR headsets now. So I get that, but
right,
way to make people angry.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess the real question is how many people are playing it.
Exactly.
Right.
How many people are you making angry here?
Yeah.
Both
and guys are.
Plus they're Minecraft. They're Minecraft guys. What are they going to do? Write a sternly worded letter?
They're moving to Roblox.
Yeah. I think. Look, there is that Vibrant update coming. That kind of graphical update. That's pretty cool. I think we're gonna see further advances with Minecraft, which is amazing given the age of this game. But yeah, it's one of those things. Like for me, it's kind of vague. It's like, it's too bad, but it's like, I'm not going to do this anyway. Who cares?
Yep.
GTA 6 supposed to come out this year. That has been delayed until March 26th next year.
Do you believe that number? I don't.
I mean, I believe it's not coming this year. No. So that doesn't surprise me.
I'll bet it's out Christmas next year. If you're lucky.
We just wanted to get it right. We will ship no game before it's time or something.
It's already been a decade, boys. Come on.
I know.
Largest game in the world.
I know. Yeah. I mean, between it and Minecraft and then maybe Fortnite is pretty much, it's got to be like 90% of the gaming industry right there, right? I mean, it's kind of crazy, like how popular these games are. Okay. And then
the bigger part is like GTA 5 is still making money. Like,
I know.
You are just cannibalizing your own
you have
market.
to wonder, it's like, maybe it's not such a bad thing to push this out. We're still kind of milking this thing. Like it's working good for us.
Yeah.
Backbone, you may remember they did a recent Xbox edition of this. Is the controller where you pull it apart with your phone and slap it back together. So it gives you that kind of effect of that all-in-one portable gaming thing, but with a phone.
Could have bought a portable, but instead you got a phone. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm old enough where I'm like, for me to play a game on my phone, I have to put my the cheater glasses on. I huddle in front of it like an old guy. But
great, nice.
I know it's the worst.
Fun, Gramps.
Getting old is the best.
Look at Gramps.
What are you playing
the
over there,
game on
Gramps?
his phone.
Minecraft? I'm like, screw you, buddy. I'm playing Call of Duty. Anyway, so but they just came out with a Backbone Pro model, and this is actually really exciting. And this one works in two different ways. You can put your phone in there before and you get that direct connection with USB-C, but you can also connect any device to it using Bluetooth. And that means you could use it as a controller for a tablet, like an iPad, a computer of any kind, a smart TV where you might be streaming games, whatever. And it supports multiple, device connections, of course, seamless swapping between them, and also profiles. So you can map the keys and buttons buttons, I guess, to whatever the game might be if you want to customize that. So I actually have one of these in to review, and I can tell you, like, so far, this is amazing.
I just try to realize what your new gamer handle has to be is teabagging with readers.
Oh, God.
It's like McLovin, but teabagging.
Yeah. But it's the readers that's the important part.
Yeah, with the readers. Yeah, exactly. How else would I see it properly?
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, I'm not going to dunk in the right spot. Come on.
So I've tried this so far with two phones in the device, but I've also tried it Bluetooth connected. And by the way, you can also, they don't really say this, but you can connect it to like an iPad or a computer with the USB cable, and you still get that direct connection, right? So when you use it with the phone, let me think about that. I think it has its own batteries, but it also works off the battery. It can, take some of the battery from the phone as well, so it doesn't go down as fast. But you can direct connect it with a cable, and it just, works like a controller. The only thing I don't like about it is you can't make it a little smaller. It's a little further apart, like the two sides than are in a traditional controller. But having one controller that works with everything is pretty amazing, and it works great. Like it's actually really nice. Even in Bluetooth, I was just doing normal Call of Duty off the. No, I'm sorry, that's not true. It was Call of Duty Mobile on the iPad, but I did it Bluetooth, and wired, and even on Bluetooth, it was like this is actually works really well, and I love that because that's the type of thing I could picture doing on a plane, assuming I had connectivity. I guess is playing like a game, like a good game. Not like a Angry Birds thing, but like a arcade, 3D shooter, whatever, like Call of Duty. So pretty cool. Anyway, something to look forward to, or look for, or look at. What am I talking about? It's nice. It's a good game.
Okay.
Well, we got through that almost painlessly.
I blame myself.
Well, I felt a little pressure from last week. There was only one Xbox.
Oh,
story.
you made up for it.
You Xbox like crazy.
We got Xboxed.
All right, guys, we have 18 minutes left. So this means the back of the book's going to be jam-packed with excitement. You're watching Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott, Richard Campbell. And now let's kick things off on the back of the book with Paul's tip of the week. And actually, Steve Gibson was talking about this last week, or yesterday, rather. I'm very excited.
So I'm going to make this one quick. Supposedly, if you create a new Microsoft account now, it will be passwordless by default.
Woohoo.
That has not been my experience. I've been trying to create a new Microsoft account ever since they announced this, and I'm always prompted to create a password. So I don't know what's going on there, but anyway, anyone can go into. I know it's so if you go to account.microsoft.com, log in with your Microsoft account, obviously, go into security and privacy. You can set up these other ways to authenticate. So you should have 2FA going there. You should have a Microsoft Authenticator or whatever authenticator app, passkeys, et cetera, et cetera. You can remove your password from your account. This is a vector for attack. It's not a bad idea. Now that this stuff has become mature enough, and we have all these other ways to authenticate. So it's something to look into. I'm gonna look at this more. I'm probably gonna do a hands-on Windows episode about this soon, assuming I can ever actually make this account. But we'll look at that one in the future.
So basically, they're talking passkeys here, yes?
Well, passkeys and 2FA. Like, remember a couple of weeks ago, I made the comment that Microsoft would like you to come to it to create an account with like a Gmail account or a whatever account, because that account already has security built on top of it. So there's already this layer for them. Like, it's less to worry about with this Microsoft account. Supposedly, though, this is for new Microsoft accounts. So you come and you're like, I want to make an Outlook.com account or Hotmail. You can make a Hotmail account if you want to do right now. It's supposed to let you do it in a passwordless way. So you have to create up these second, they call them, I can't remember the exact term, but it's like secondary authentication, essentially. So you have to have a recovery email or a recovery phone number or an authenticator app or whatever it might be. Ideally, you have all those things, right? But you don't have to have a password, supposedly. That's not been my experience, but soon.
So I see under additional security in managing my
That's right.
security, I see
turn it on.
Turn on passwordless accounts. So I should turn that on.
I'm not saying, well, maybe I am saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, Steve says it's better.
Leo's going to email and be like, so I just lost access to my Microsoft account. Thanks for that.
Yeah, so I'm approving this in the authenticator.
Yeah, so I did this with my account to see what it looked like, and you're going through this now. So
my password's gone.
Yeah.
I don't have a password.
That's right. So you live in the dream.
Passwordless.
Wow.
Yep.
But I do have two-step on, which I want still, right?
Of course. Yep.
But nobody can guess my password now or hack my password and get into my account. That's the theory of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Yeah. There's no way to get there.
On the flip side of this equation, Microsoft has an authenticator app called Microsoft Authenticator, which I use for Microsoft accounts.
That's what I usually recommend. If you're all in, if you're in M365 and so forth, use Microsoft Authenticator.
They just do that stuff right.
Yeah, it's much easier with their products. It's a regular authenticator for everything.
I actually like Google Authenticator better for every other account, but for Microsoft accounts, it's the best.
And that's the advice again. If you're not in M365, don't bother. Use Google.
Yeah. Yep. So one of the things it's done to date is it also supports password management and then does autofill on phones. You can also do that through the Edge app. So if you don't use Microsoft Authenticator, the same database of passwords and stuff is available to you from Edge, and you can set Edge to be your password autofill, etc. They're actually getting rid of the password management and autofill features from Authenticator sometime, I think by the middle of the summer, which is making a lot of people upset. But I feel very strongly maybe you should be using a third-party password manager.
Yeah, and this is an opportunity for the 1Passes and the Bitwardens of the world to say, hey, we have a migration tool from Microsoft Authenticator for you.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation.
When I got off of LastPass and moved to Bitwarden, it was far less painful than I thought. Like, the hard part is getting into a password manager. Once you're there, moving to another one's just not that tough.
Yeah, this is like the first time you change like a cable or like a high-speed internet provider. The first time you're like, oh, I don't want to screw with this. And then you do it. You're like, okay, now I can do this.
Yeah. I do it every day.
Yeah.
Well, and in reality is there's a moment where all your passwords are spit out in like a CSV format or some kind of very unprotected format for you to upload into the other thing.
Like, oh, I don't like this being out
You
here.
hate everything about that. And then you've got to delete those files. Like as soon as you're up,
that's the thing. This is the thing no one does. And by the way, that CSV file, if you wanted to save that, I mean, if you use Microsoft stuff, consider OneDrive as that protected.
Encrypt it first. Please.
Well, but this is what encrypts it. Like you can put it into the personal vault.
Oh, put it in the personal vault. I still would encrypt it locally.
Encrypt it and then put it in.
Get rid of it.
Okay.
Basically get rid of it. Why are you saving it? Yeah.
Create it, made the
I'm
migration.
just trying to give you one out. I know for people are like, oh, I don't, one of the big arguments against password managers, but now we only have like one place where everything is. And it's like, yeah, that's the point.
That's the point.
You want it to be a secure, that should have 2FA and, all that stuff.
All those things.
Yes. And that's pretty much it. Mobile, I mentioned Mozilla last week said you use Brave. Brave for Android now does content removal from individual websites like it does on desktop. That's awesome, by the way. But also Opera for Android, which is based on Chromium and really good. Has really sophisticated tab management stuff if that matters to you. But I won't beat that to death. I'm sorry, Richard. You should probably.
It's all right.
I'm so sorry.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to go searching for the one honest man. Runnersradio.com.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. I thought it was Steve Gibson, ladies and gentlemen.
This is a show that was requested by a listener who's like, hey, how do I get into the careers in IT? Mm-hmm. And it happened to be that a regular on Run As Radio, Yuri Diogenes, who's been at Microsoft for 20-something years, has always been in the security space and literally wrote the book, How to Have a Career in Cybersecurity. So I'm like, Yuri, do you want to talk about this? I go, I thought you'd never ask, because we usually talk shop, like talk about the products he works on rather than the books he's writing on the side. And Yuri had a lot to say, not surprisingly. Like, it was a really fun conversation, because starting with, I mean, the term cybersecurity is ridiculous. It covers such a vast array of roles of different kinds of work you might be doing. And so we sort of had to break all that down. Like, what are we talking about when we even say this? And he got to the essence of it very quickly. Doesn't matter what you're doing, if you are a white hat just trying to defend a system, or you're working on the red team trying to do penetration testing and so forth, or you're a consultant, there is one common attribute to anybody interested in security, which is insatiable curiosity. Just trying to figure out how things work, why they behave the way they do, why did that thing happen? Because if you're not interested in root cause analysis, this is not the job for you. This is what is valuable, is that you will grind away at a problem until you pin it down and can really work the whole flow out. So if that's something in your nature, it's like it almost can't be taught. If you have that, you can harness the rest of the skills, and you can go to some interesting places and have an interesting career without a doubt. So super fun conversation. I was very pleased with the way it came out.
Nice.
We enjoyed it. We enjoyed chatting about it.
Now, before the clock strikes 12.
And I have to I fly in 5 hours.
Oh, you got time.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
I got a 3-hour drive before I fly.
Oh, let's get this done then. What's your whiskey pick of the week?
My whiskey pick of the week sitting right here. I've been drinking it all week. It's the Jura 10.
Yum.
I'm not going to call this a filler whiskey per se in terms of our schedule, but I have another Australian bottle I'll deal with next week, because I didn't want to travel with it. But Jura is the only distillery on the Isle of Jura. And Jura is just northeast of Islay. So it is part of the Inner Hebrides. It's a small island, 150 square miles. That's it. There are, quote unquote, mountains on the island, 3 of them that are about 2,500 feet high. They're called the Paps of Jura. They're conical quartzites. Otherwise, this island has a little bit of forest, lots of peat bog, because, again, suffering from the same weather conditions that Islay is, because it's right nearby. There's evidence of humans being on that island for a very long time, Mesolithic and Neolithic. There are ruins, there are monuments, there are cairns, all kinds of cool stuff.
There are empty whiskey bottles.
There are more whiskey barrels on Jura than there are people.
Wow.
By a lot.
Wow.
Like Islay, these islands were largely controlled by the Gaelic peoples, what we generally would call Irish, until, of course, then the Vikings came through and killed everybody and kept control of those islands for hundreds of years until the Treaty of Perth in 1266. And after that, it was part of the Scottish kingdom. So these islands were controlled by the MacDougalls, the MacDonalds, and the McRorys. Although after a couple hundred years, they were fomenting an insurrection against the king. And so the lands were taken away from them, this 146 square mile island, and given to the Campbells of Craiginish. Who controlled the island until the 1700s, as you start to form the conventional state and the concept of the United Kingdom and so forth. The peak population of the Isle of Jura was in 1831 at a whole 1,300 people. Today, it's a little less than 200. There really are more barrels than people on this island. There is exactly one town. It is called Craighouse. It has a general store, a church, a primary school, a gas station, a tea room, the only hotel that also has a bar. And just a little bit out of town is the distillery of Jura.
Have you visited?
I have not. No, I have not been down there. There's the easy way to get there is via a ferry out of Talvalich, which is a passenger-only ferry during the summer. It's about 30 pounds to take a ride across to Craig House. And your main thing you would do there is go to tea and or go taste whiskey. There is the all year round transport is from Isla on the west side, the Port Askaig ferry, which is a 5-minute ferry. You are expected to be in the line on the Jura side before the ferry leaves Port Askaig, because they just go over, they pick you up, and they take you back. It's very quick.
You got 5 minutes, baby. Get on that boat.
The claim to fame for Jura is that George Orwell wrote 1984 while renting a house on the island.
No kidding.
In 1947-48, he finished it in late 48 and then sent it off to the publisher and immediately left the island to get treated for tuberculosis. And he did die of tuberculosis a few months later, but not before he saw that his great masterwork would be published. And that house, by the way, is still for rent, essentially in the same condition that Orwell left it. They've preserved it, and you can rent it if you would like to have that experience. Back to the whiskey side of things. So in Craig House, there was a distillery first formed in 1810. And on this bottle, it talks about 1810, established 1810, which is a complete lie, because the distillery, while formed by a Campbell, an Archibald Campbell, it changed names several times over the next 90 years. It was called Small Owls. It was called KLLN. Finally, it was called Jura, but it went bankrupt and was shut down in 1901 and stripped of parts. All the equipment, stills, everything was removed when it sat empty for another 60 years. 1963, Robin Fletcher and Tony Riley Smith, with backing from the McKinley & Co. group, rebuilt the distillery. So really new of the 60s. Their first production was in 74. They did well enough that by 78, they doubled from 2 stills to 4. They were bought out by Invergordon Distillers in 85, which became White & McKay in 93. And White & McKay, you know of, we've talked about them before. They've owned Dalmore, Tamnavulin, Bruichladdich, and Tullibardine. And then United Spirits bought White & McKay in 2007, which has now been merged into Emperador as of 2014. That's a Filipino liquor distribution organization. And this particular edition of Jura, their whiskeys, again, is contemporary. This is a 2018 redesign of the bottle and the product, which speaks to the fact that it is not heavily peated, considering where it's from. Because they use a Kerry style yeast, which is a little bit different, typical in the South, only a 54-hour fermentation, which is short. Many are much longer than that. They got 6 stainless steel washbacks, about 50,000 liters each, and then just 2 sets of stills, 24,000 liter wash stills and 15,000 liter spirit stills. But what they are famous for is being extremely tall, 28 feet high. At the time that they were put into production in the 70s, they were the largest stills in the world. It's not true anymore. And certainly they stayed the largest stills in Scotland. Like Jack Daniels has the biggest stills now. But a couple of the Scottish distilleries now have larger stills. They're what they call lantern style. So great big bulb on the bottom that chokes up into a tighter neck with a second bulb and a high lie arm that then has a slight decline. So lots of reflux, which makes for a very light whiskey. And they use standard rack warehousing, which you're used to, the wooden structures, barrels on their sides, dirt floors. They make a lot of different whiskey. Again, they're very much a contemporary whiskey company now. So their signature range, of which this is the base product, they actually have 14 variations in. Some are peated, some are not. They have a bunch of different barrelings, including, most stuff is aged in bourbon because it's inexpensive, but they also do finishes in wine, in beer, in sherry, in port, and rum. And then they have a set 9 varieties of what they call travel exclusives, which are duty-free, which universally I loathe. Generally speaking, duty-free whiskeys are a mistake. Don't do it. Nobody's, don't do it.
Pay the duty or just drink it there.
There is then a third line is what they call the rare and limited lines, which they do special editions of here and there. The ultimate rare and limited, if you care to try and find it, is the 1984 edition made in honor of Orwell. So distilled in 84 and then bottled 30-year-old. Last time went up for auction because there was none for sale. It was over $1,000.
I was going to say, jeez.
You're not going to find that. No, don't worry about it. So the Jura 10, this is the baseline of the signature line. Aged in bourbon casks, not surprising, inexpensive. It's got a tiny bit of peat in it. And if you don't think I'm going to drink whiskey at 9 o'clock in the morning in New Zealand, you are mistaken. This is my job. I'm here.
It's his job. They don't call him Campbell for nothing. I just put 2 and 2 together. You come from a long line of Scotch whiskey drinkers.
Yeah, for sure. So just the tiniest hint of peat. It's 0.5 ppm, which is really just enough to go.
Just how
hello.
we like it.
Yeah. I might have been there. It does have a finish in sherry, so it's been a little less than a year at sherry at the end. So a lot of color for a 10-year-old, and so tasty.
I like sherry finished, I think.
Yeah, it's a good way to go. And this is an inexpensive bottle, 40% ABV. You can find it at Bevmo, less than $40. Not a big deal. Here's what's fun about this, because I've been drinking it all week with my cousins. It evolves in your mouth as you drink it. So the initial hit from it is still a potent whiskey. It's only 40%, so it's not real heady. Like you're not being clubbed over the head or anything. It's got that little smoky flavor, which you rapidly forget about. And then it just gives you a bit of heat and a bit of fruitiness and sugariness, because it's light. It's a very light tasting, light drinking whiskey. So it's a friend. You can keep this around. It's an everyday drinker. It's not expensive, but it's proper Scottish whiskey from the Inner Hebrides. And that's an awesome thing.
Made by a tiny island community, and that's what you're looking for.
You're probably talking a dozen people work at that distillery, and that's it.
That's really cool, I have to say. That is really cool.
I'm just glad it's not called Jira. You know what I'm saying?
Honestly.
And they say the bottles are designed for, travel on ship to export. Does that make sense? Or is
It's a little flattened.
It's kind of a cool...
This is not your standard Scotch bottle, which is great, because this is I think it's a better looking bottle.
It's not round, and it's got little indentations, so you know exactly where to hold it.
Bottom. Yeah, it's got Scrippy. The 1810 on the back, I already told you, let you know that. It's like, come on, guys.
Not really.
Nah. This was designed in 2018, and it shows, because it's so drinkable.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. As some of our sponsors say, if I were a whiskey drinker, this is what I'd be drinking.
There you go.
Yes. They always, for some reason, they put this line in our ads now. If I were to use this product, this is the product I would use. Okay. Okay. If you say so. That concludes this is thrilling, gripping edition of Windows Weekly. You'll find Richard Campbell at runasradio.com, and now he's going to run to the airport.com.
I'm going to take this rig down, get it all back in the bag, get in the car, and
get out of here.
Get out of here.
Thurrott is at thurrott.com, and of course, leanpub.com for his books. We are at twit.tv. We do this show every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC. You can watch us live in our Club Twit Discord if you're a club member. Otherwise, YouTube, Twitch, X.com, TikTok, Facebook, Finkton, and Gick.
Finkton and Gick? Is that what you just said?
I'm trying to get through this. And
Finkton?
And after the fact, you can also get a copy of the show, download audio or video from our website, twit.tv/WW, or share a clip with your friend. Spread the good word about Windows Weekly using our YouTube channel dedicated to Windows Weekly. All the videos are there. Or, best thing to do, subscribe in your favorite podcast player. That way you'll get it automatically, and you can watch and listen whenever you should choose. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Richard. Have a wonderful, wonderful flight home. We will see you in Mad Park next week.
Quick 15
Strongly
hours on an
recommend
airplane.
watching on Gick.
I hope you have something to occupy your time.
I have a nice lie flat seat with a 17-inch screen. I'm not going to be suffering too much.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Catch up on all those crappy movies you missed.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Richard. Thank you to all our winners and dozers. We'll see you next Wednesday on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye. Hey, buddy, are you a geek? Are you a tech enthusiast? Then I would love to invite you to join a tech community like no other. You can gain exclusive access to our incomparable quality tech content with Club Twit. As a member, you'll enjoy all Twit TV shows ad-free. Plus, access private video feeds for insider shows like iOS Today, Home Theater Geeks, and so much more. Dive into the members-only Twit Plus bonus feed for behind-the-scenes content, club discussions, and special events. But here's the best perk. Join our incredible Discord community to watch live show productions, chat with hosts, and participate in exclusive members-only activities. It's your backstage pass to the world of Twit. Whether you're a tech enthusiast or a lifelong learner, Club Twit elevates your knowledge while entertaining your interests. Get 2 weeks free when you sign up now and unlock unparalleled access at twit.tv/clubtwit. That's twit.tv/clubtwit. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you and welcome to the club.